Hello everybody. Welcome to another HealthyGamerGG stream. My name is Alok Kanocha and I am a doctor, but just a reminder that everything we discuss on stream today is intended to be for educational purposes only. Nothing is intended to be taken as medical advice. If y'all have a concern or question, please go see a licensed professional. Stream has started. No, I would hope so, because I'm certainly here and I'm certainly talking to an empty room. And for those of y'all that are saying hit the like button for Dr. K fam, we really appreciate it. Thank you guys very much. Okay, so seriously, welcome to another HealthyGamerGG stream. My name is Alok Kanoja. I'm a psychiatrist. Just a reminder that everything we talk about on stream today is intended to be for educational and entertainment purposes only. Nothing is intended to be taken as medical advice. And so if y'all have a concern or question, please go see a licensed professional. So yeah, I don't know what that accent is. Sometimes I just mix them up for the little ones, and my kids don't. They used to really dislike it when I spoke in an accent, but first of all, they are now learning accents themselves, and so I don't know if they're already like offensive at their age. And then the second thing is they've suddenly started to like them. Y'all don't need to smash the like button once is enough. What you need to smash is me. Okay, so today we're gonna do something different. So it's kind of like end of 2023. We're looking at 2024. So Kruti and I thought that we would just talk to y'all about what we're doing. So what's going on with this whole healthy gamer thing? Like how did we get started? What are we doing now? There's been a lot of community concern. I think some of it is like back and forth. All discussion has been fantastic about things like coaching, and we recently launched memberships. And some people are concerned about, oh my God, like we're paywalling content now. And like, we thought HG was like better than that and stuff should be free. Those are all super valid concerns. And I actually think that it's completely reasonable for people to say that, right? Because that's how we started. Like we just started out offering accessible mental health resources on the internet. And like the vast, vast majority of what we do is free. So today, I thought that we would, instead of just focusing on that one thing, what I'd love to do today, and hopefully Kruti will join me at some point, is we just want to talk to y'all about like what we're thinking, where we started, where we want to go, how we're planning on getting there, and why we do the things that we do. And so I was hoping she would be here by now, and so I could just dive right in. But that's what we want to talk about. We'll probably spend about, I guess, 45 minutes or an hour talking about this, and then we'll answer questions if y'all want, and then depending on what the vibe is, like we can do like more traditional HG stuff. So I'm totally like, I'm well rested today. I kind of canceled my morning. I spent a couple hours in bed this morning and just canceled my morning because I was just burnt out, because I've streamed like 4 times today and I'm like writing a bunch and things like that, so I just like needed a break. So now on the upside, it's like noon and I'm starting work right this second. And so this is fun, which means I've got some energy, so we can just do whatever y'all want. Like after we're done, maybe we'll all be wiped and we all want to go home. Who knows? Yeah. So, Boopy the Fox says, I really want to support the stream and get access to extra content, and I am able to afford, but I literally cannot pay because I'm based in Russia. Anything I can do besides moving. So first thing is like, I want to say we hear that loud and clear. So let's just get started. Let's just get started. So we're going to address that. And I want to explain to you why we do stuff for free and why we don't do stuff for free. And what the thinking is behind that, what the goals are behind that. Is that like, are y'all cool with that? Is that okay? Like, we're going to talk about the HG mission. We're going to talk about people who have these concerns, right? Because a lot of y'all, and this is stuff that I'm actually really proud that we've gotten here as far as we have. So let's start from the top. All right. So here is a human on the internet. And the first problem is that mental health is the only specialty of medicine that is getting worse. So if you look at outcomes, as we dump more money into cancer research, cardiovascular research, diabetes research, we have things like Ozempic, right? Which is this miracle diabetes drug. Oh my God. This stream is not sponsored by Ozempic. I'm not recommending that you take Ozempic. I'm saying if you want Ozempic, go talk to your doctor. But if you look at, despite all the research and despite gigantic advances in our understanding of the mind, and I think like big ones are things like the MRI. So we thought that like, okay, now we have a way of like looking inside the brain. And if we can look inside the brain, then we'll understand like why people are mentally ill. But despite all this research funding and stuff like that, mental health is actually getting worse. It's the only field of medicine where we're losing the war. So some of this stuff is related to pandemic, but I don't think it's all pandemic. So like people will say like, oh my God, the pandemic is ruining people's mental health. And it did. But I think the pandemic was certainly bad. But I think what really happened is the pandemic exposed all of the weaknesses in our system. And it accelerated a decline in mental health that was already happening and has continued to happen post-pandemic. So we're losing the war. And then along comes little baby Dr. K. And this is before I was Dr. K. This is Alok, who has a medical degree. Woohoo! Yay, I finished med school. And Alok had ambitions. Little baby Alok had ambitions. Little baby Alok was going to be a very, very successful person, was going to be a holistic healer, was going to be an oncologist, and use the power of yoga and meditation combined with the latest science to cure people of cancer. Because that is a noble goal. That's what real doctors do. And then I sort of fell in love with psychiatry because the mind is my favorite organ. And then the other thing that happened is when I was training to become a psychiatrist, I had a couple of very formative conversations in my second year of residency. And I asked people basically like, what do y'all think about tech addiction, specifically video game addiction? And what I was stunned by is that like the leaders in the field of psychiatry, these are people like who are professors of psychiatry at Harvard Medical School, chief of psychiatry at places like Massachusetts General Hospital and McLean Hospital, which are basically the number 1 and number 2 psychiatric hospitals like in the United States, definitely top 5 in the world. They basically like compete with each other. I'm sure there are other great institutions out there like Yale is awesome, like Stanford is great, like UCLA is awesome. There's tons of, we're going to need you. Can you get yourself a chair? I'm on a roll.
Do you have water?
No.
Okay, water.
Okay. So I was talking to these people and they're like, yeah, like nothing's really going on. So like this is back in 2000 and maybe 16 or 17. I thought tech addiction was a huge problem. I thought it was going to get worse. And like basically it was like not on the radar of people who were sort of leading the field back in 2016, 2017. This isn't just these people. I also spoke with like the president of the American Psychiatric Association. And I said like, what's the APA's plan to deal with this? And they're like, we totally acknowledge it's a concern, but we've got an opiate crisis that's like people are overdosing on opiates, and that's what we're focused on right now, which is also completely fair. I don't blame these people for like not, sounding the alarm bells like 6 or 7 years ago. So then what happened is I started to realize I started to become somewhat successful. And then I started to build up this like private practice of like holistic psychiatry where I had like, like CEOs and crap like that, like come into my office and I was teaching them about basically what I teach y'all, but I was doing it for people who are somewhat well off. And then like one day I realized that like those are not the people that need my help. Like sure they can benefit from it, but there's a line of people out the door who can help these people. And like my people are the degenerate gamers. So I started streaming on Twitch. And when I started streaming on Twitch, it was really great. Like I really enjoyed it. And then like I started like connecting with the community and stuff like that. And a lot of people don't know this, but for this first 6 months of HG, maybe 8 months, I also ran a group on Discord where I would show up on Discord Thursday evenings for about 60 minutes. I'd give a talk about some kind of topic, and then I'd like answer questions and stuff like that. And then we would like meditate and whatever. And there were about 30 people that showed up. This was HG at its inception. It was really great because it was like first name basis with everyone there. I got to know everyone. 15 people would show up every week, rotating, like some people would miss and some people would come. And it was really great. It was like I had this little group of people. We were lean, we were mean, we were small. No one was really paying attention to us. And then what happened is like we started to grow. And then as we started to grow, like things started to change. And this is kind of what I want to talk to y'all about. And you want to say hi or scoot in?
Yeah, sure.
We're going to have to take turns because the mic is not set up for... Yeah,
That's
it's gonna
annoying.
be...
Just
yeah.
move the mic.
No, but then come on this side.
Okay.
And then I'll scoot this way. I know it's kind of weird, but I think this is going to be
look.
better.
Technical issues, like the good old days.
Yes. Yeah, we're not, you know. Okay. So then as we started to grow, we started to have a problem, which was that everyone wanted to work with Dr. K. So I was getting at the most 10,000 requests for people to work with me in my private practice per month. That was the height, I think. And so then like I have a problem, right? Because there's no way that I like can see 10,000 people a month, let alone whatever. I can see maybe at most like 30 people, 40 if I really push myself. So that's just not going to work. And this is in the backdrop of a mental health crisis. And so like the old solutions are not working anymore. And I even saw, let me show you all something.
Can you put this over there?
I can in a second.
Okay.
So like this is in the backdrop of stuff like this, right? So the other thing that's going on is psychologists can't meet the growing demand for mental health care. So this is stuff like over half said they had no openings for new patients. Wait lists are 3 months or longer, and nearly 40% said that their wait list has grown in the past year. So this is just a survey of psychologists. It's not, you know, it's not like peer-reviewed research or anything. But one of the things that I started to really believe is that our current mental health system is not working, right? And this is why we're losing the war on mental health, because this sort of idea of like, okay, I'm going to go see my psychiatrist or therapist. A small subset of the people needs to do this. I'm going to do this for about a year or two. I mean, some people are in therapy for like decades, right? And it's not a knock on them or their therapists, but there's just not, this is not working. Like something fundamentally is like not working, despite the fact that we're advancing in neuroscience. You've got drug companies that are just investing tons and tons and tons of money in mental health. And one of the reasons for that is that oftentimes a drug company that has a medication for someone who has a mental health problem has a lifelong patient. So it's like a good bet for them, because our medications manage symptoms. They don't treat root causes. That's not a knock on the drug company. It's just like their perspective is like, okay, so if I take all of the different diagnoses that I can help, if I'm treating an infection, I can sell 1 week of antibiotics, and I'm helping someone with their anxiety, I can treat them for 30 years, right? And I don't think that's nefarious. I think it's just like you can have a customer for a week or you can have a customer for 30 years. Which one are you going to pick?
It's the way the model is built, right? It's just how it is.
Yeah. So
I cannot see. Thank you.
Should we get you a different chair? Okay, I'll go get you a different chair in a second, okay? So this is kind of what I was seeing. And so like I wasn't quite sure how we're going to tackle this problem. And the story of HG has basically been a series of experiments to try to tackle this problem, to try to tackle the fundamental problem that one person, an army of therapists seeing people 1 hour a week for like some number of years is insufficient to manage the mental health crisis.
I mean, people are trying that, right? People are trying the army of therapists approach.
But at the beginning, things were fine, because here's Dr. K, and I'm streaming, and I'm teaching people about mental health. We're also doing some things like we're teaching y'all to meditate and things like that. So when we're getting tons of these requests, this is the first thing that happens is I start to ask myself, can I teach other people to do what I do? And that's where our coaching program was born. It wasn't like I didn't start out to start a coaching program. So we're getting 10,000 requests a month. I could tell people, and I tell y'all every stream, to go see a therapist, right? And then like a very common thing that we get is like, that's not feasible for me. And that's like half of y'all. Half of y'all are from countries where therapists are very, very hard to find or don't exist or push religion or anything else. So like the gold standard of treatment for mental health is not accessible for the majority of the population. This is the fundamental problem. So then the question is, okay, if like a highly trained psychiatrist or therapist is not available to you, then what can we do? So I'd also done a lot of public health work.
He's an MPH. I don't know if you'll know that.
And then so I like looked at the peer support model, and this was also like based on my training, right? So what I noticed is that here I am, a psychiatrist who's very competent, but my patients are getting a ton out of AA that I can't provide. So I can be an addiction psychiatrist and I can explain to them like the neuroscience of the brain and all this kind of stuff, but like I don't know what it's like to be addicted to heroin. And there is some kind of help that you can offer if you have like lived through it and survived a problem. This is just a fundamental like part of humanity. And so there's also growing research, and there are organizations like the World Health Organization, the United Nations, which are all basically saying like we need to be doing more peer support. And then I asked around, like, and I even talked to people like in the office of the US Surgeon General, and I was like, where I have a huge population of people who are struggling with their mental health, which peer support programs can I send them to?
Yep.
And after talking to these institutions, they were like, they don't exist.
At scale.
At scale. Right? So you may have like some group somewhere in like Columbus, Ohio or something like that that does something around tech addiction, but the nothing exists at scale. Okay, so then we started coaching.
Can I interject with kind of what I was saying? So, hi, I'm Kruti. I'm Mrs. K. I'm Miss Kruti in chat. It's good to see you guys. It's been a long time. So, my day job is very boring compared to getting to hang out with you guys. But in the meantime, when Alec was running these 30-member Discord groups, I was a stay-at-home mom, and I remember being in the next room giving our kids a bath, and I was thinking, how do we do this? And then I went to business school for healthcare management. And as Alec was telling me more and more about what's going on, what he wanted to build, I would think, okay, here's the 3 problems I'm seeing. It's not affordable. So whatever we do has to be affordable. It's not accessible, right? It's local. It's whether it's insurance covered, whether you can get there at 2:00 on a Tuesday, things like that. So accessibility was a big part of it. And it's not inclusive, right? There's not a get it factor. If you're going into somebody's office as a 20-year-old college student, you're probably going to be working with like a 55-year-old person. They don't relate at all. So we said, okay, whatever we build has to be affordable, accessible, inclusive. And that's kind of how whatever we build at Healthy Gamer outside of Alec's brain, that's kind of the North Star. Okay, keep going.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
So then we kind of, so now we stream, right? And then we've got coaching. But then there's a problem with coaching. So coaches are very effective. Like we spent a lot of time developing our program. Like we really believe in it. Part of the reason that we talk about it so much is now we have like tons of data that it is very effective. So we're featured this year at the American Psychiatric Association based on like what we're doing with our coaching program and stuff like that, those kinds of outcomes. And so we've also got a couple of studies that we're running on the program. We hope to publish our first outcomes very soon. So then, people can look at everything and analyze the data and stuff. But then we sort of started to run into like an interesting problem, right? So we're making a ton of stuff for free, right? So streams and whatnot.
Just to be clear, free to you guys, expensive to us, right?
Yeah, I'm getting that. So here's the thing that like I think is not hard to understand, but I think even I don't really think about this stuff, and I didn't really understand this until I started building free stuff.
And I went to business school.
So here's the thing. So free stuff costs money, right? Like y'all get that, right? Obviously. And then here's the thing. As you grow free stuff and you offer more free stuff, right? So like Discord, and then a Discord that has 10,000 people versus 87,000 people, which is I think where we are now. As you offer stuff like resource packs, as you have thumbnail editors, right? So then we had like an additional very simple problem, which is I stream on Twitch. And then like, where does that live? So then we start uploading things to YouTube. If you upload things to YouTube, that's an additional cost. I'm not saying it's super high, but what I'm saying is like the more free stuff you offer and the more free things that you do, the more money you need, which is like, I know it's a stupid thing, but like I did not get that at the outset.
Well, that's what kind of made it awesome. We didn't want to build. I think that's what made it special. Yeah.
Anyway, so that, like, I didn't quite grasp that at the beginning. And so if you think about an organization, right? So let's say there's an organization that provides free widgets. The bigger you become, the more your costs increase, but your like revenues don't increase compensatorily. And now some people may say like, okay, but don't you guys get ad revenue and stuff like that from YouTube? Absolutely. But there are a couple things to consider there. The first is that we are trying to do more than just be a YouTube creator. And we're going to talk to that in a second, because our goal here is not to make a revenue neutral or profitable content channel. It's to actually try to solve this problem of like tech addiction and losing the war on mental health. And we'll get to that in a second. And so maybe if all I was doing was content, like that would be fine. But we're actually trying to do other things. So as we're trying to solve this problem, like, let me just give you all a sense of like what I think needs to happen to solve this problem. So we can make content. So we need to educate the public. But then also, like, sometimes educating people isn't enough, right? In fact, most of the time, education doesn't solve problems. There's a bazillion YouTube videos out there, like TikToks, whatever. Take your platform of choice about how to exercise, how to eat healthy. It doesn't actually get people to exercise and eat healthy, or it doesn't work at a very high fidelity, right? So for every 100 videos that you watch on cooking a dish, you may make like 1 to 10. That's just the way that education works. What? Okay. So second thing that we need to do is I sort of noticed that we were also hearing a lot of people from the community. So this is where kind of peer support comes in. So this is a more scalable way to support individual people to make behavioral change. And that's what our program is kind of built on. But then there are a couple of other things that we need to do. The first thing is that I know that Dr. K is great and all, but we actually don't know whether what we're building works, right? Like, do y'all get, like, we have no idea.
Well, so this is just backing up, right? Like, if you think about what is fundamentally kind of flawed in the therapist-patient relationship, or regardless of any doctor-patient, coach-client, whatever that relationship is, there's no accountability, right? If you don't have a good experience with your therapist, who do you tell? Maybe your therapist, but even then your therapist will probably be like, well, that's because you see the world this way or that way. And so if you don't have accountability, you can't, I don't know, you're stuck with what you get, and that's kind of the end. And we didn't want to build something with no accountability. We also didn't want to build something where, I don't know, that had this paternalistic, like, I know everything, you know nothing kind of situation, which is
you really got to sit forward.
Can y'all hear me or no?
You have to get really close to the mic the way it's set up.
Like this?
Yeah.
Okay, this is very uncomfortable. This is very awkward. All right, all I was saying is, you know, from the outset, what we wanted to build was something that fixed the fundamental problems that we saw in mental health. And one of those is accountability. So we didn't want to just kind of say like, all right, here's your coach, the end, goodbye. It was really important to us that it have integrity, that you have a way to escalate, that you have a way to say, this isn't working for me, that there are good feedback loops, not only with your coach, but with the organization. Not only with the organization, if you said, hey, this is like icky, there's ethics protocols, like whatever it might be. We didn't want people stuck in these kind of flawed models.
Okay. So we decided that we also wanted to build a research infrastructure, because we need to be able to study the efficacy of what we're building so we know whether it works or not. And then there are other things that we need to do as well. So the other thing that we were hearing a lot, so I just saw a great comment, I mean, not a great comment, a sad comment in chat about finding a therapist is like playing Russian roulette. Like, you have no idea whether you're going to get a good one or bad one. So at the same time, what I'm seeing is a deficiency in education for therapists and psychiatrists and mental health professionals. As far as I know, to become a psychiatrist or a therapist, in the United States today, it requires a total of 0 hours of education, training, or clinical experience in dealing with technology addiction. So what I was hearing time and time again, part of the reason we grew so much is because a lot of people were going to therapy for their problems, and yet we were able to help them more than their therapist was. That's what they would say. I'm not saying that it's true, or we don't need to evaluate that, but we're certainly getting that feedback, right? And that's just because we're not trained as therapists in stuff like what ADHD, how porn addiction affects your brain if you watch porn for like 10 years. We're just not trained in this stuff, right? And so this is where we started at HGI. So this was like a big thing that we did over the last like year and a half, where we started this thing that actually teaches professionals. So if we really want to solve this problem, we got to take kind of a long view. And it's not enough for us to build it ourselves. We also need to educate all the other therapists out there about what we've learned working from you. And this is going to be the kind of thing that will help hopefully 100,000 people over the next 10 years. Right? So this is another part of the AOE. Now, the problem with HGI is that it doesn't make any money right now, or I mean, hopefully we'll start generating some revenue. But like when you're building something from scratch, you know, it takes money, right? So like we have to invest that money. And then the question is, where does that money come from? So there are other, we'll get back to this. So let's just talk about money for a second. So we need money from somewhere. Right? So there's a couple of different options. So when I'm not going to go into too many details, but I was pretty involved at a nonprofit that was devoted towards making the world a better place through a particular take on health, okay, which was like great and all. So it's like one of these places that was really fantastic, really doing great work. And they were kind of a nonprofit and they were donation based. So what this actually meant is that, first of all, you have to spend a lot of your time soliciting donations, right? Like even like the most powerful people at the nonprofit were actually the fundraisers, because without the fundraising, like the whole thing folds. The other really scary thing is that if you are running a nonprofit,
HGI is the HG Institute. So that's where we just got accreditation from the American Psychological Association for continuing education modules for therapists. So if you are a therapist and you want to get credit for learning from Healthy Gamer, that's where you go.
Yeah, and you do get CEU for HGI stuff, right? So that whole process, we have to like apply and fill out applications and fees and all that kind of stuff.
I think. Okay,
let me keep going.
Yeah.
So then the other problem with sort of this nonprofit route is that like when a donor comes to you and let's say they've donated $1 million and they say, hey, like, I think we should do this. You don't get to say no, right? Y'all get that? So like the really bizarre thing in my experience, having worked a lot in finance and stuff like that, is that like the direction is determined by the donors because that's where the money is coming from. And I would even argue that when you have, so then the second option is profit or capital raising, right? So this is like VC companies, private equity companies raising capital. Now, once you raise capital, you sell a chunk of your company, you get a pile of money, and then you use that to build. But then the problem is that the people that are giving you the money, so over here, I would actually say that like you control less in a nonprofit even than you do in a for-profit. And the reason for that is that in a for-profit, there's transparency. Everyone knows that, hey, I'm going to give you a pile of cash today, and I want an even bigger pile of cash in 3 years. And that's what I expect of you, and you're going to give me this. And no matter, I don't care about your ideals or anything like that, but at least there's transparency. The problem on the nonprofit side is that there isn't transparency. If someone gives you a $1 million donation, and then they're like, hey, I think we should do this. It's like, if you say no, what happens? Like no one has a clue. So it's really bizarre. There's a lot of like psychology involved there. So this is the other thing is that we get offers to invest like all the time. So we've had offers to invest from everywhere from random people on the internet. We got our first buyout offer for HG 3 months after we started. We've gotten offers to invest from like, normal like PE firms and VC firms and things like that, but also like some really weird places, like things that I thought were like scams. So sovereign wealth funds of like countries have like approached us and been like, hey, like, are y'all open to raising capital?
Websites and
yeah, like these are things that you get an email from someone and you're like, this looks like a scam, but it's not a scam. It's actually someone who is from a country and has access to the country's bank account and is like, we want to invest. And thus far, we have not taken capital. Now, I still don't know if that's a good idea or a bad idea. And this is also where, like, you may say, like, okay, like, good for you, Dr. K, like, yay. So we haven't taken capital because we don't want to surrender so much control. That's me personally. I think there's other, Kruti's the boss here, so it's what she wants. But the bigger issue is that if this is really our goal, there is no question in my mind that if we take capital, we can probably do better, right? So, like, there's a reason why raising capital, investment, and taking capital is like the standard. That's how everyone does it. And the reason that everyone does it is probably because it's the most effective model to actually like accomplish something. So if you look at all of the companies out there that are super successful, all of them have taken capital, and that's one of the reasons why they're all super successful. We haven't done it yet. Okay? Now, the next kind of way that we can make money is things like sponsorships. So this too is something that we've started to do more. And this is we've had some sponsorships from like companies like Babbel or like Factor or whatever. But what a lot of people don't know is that we get very large sponsorship offers from companies that we generally turn down. And I'm not going to go into too much detail here, but just to give you all a sense of the scale, if you project out all of our revenue from YouTube memberships for 1 year, we have gotten sponsorship offers that will give that to us in 1 month. So all of the money that we're going to generate from YouTube memberships over the course of the year, we've gotten offers. We'll pay you that every month. We just want to sponsor your videos, right? And we're not saying that that's bad, right? That they have an angle. So one of the nice things about our YouTube channel, for example, is that we're in the highest tier of compensation for our videos. So our videos make the most money on YouTube, like in terms of like percentage of stuff like that. And the reason for that is because advertisers pay the highest price to advertise on our videos because of the nature of what that is.
So we've seen kind of firsthand like the dollar signs in people's eyes when they realize how much they can influence this community, and we've become very protective of you guys.
And this isn't, I'm not telling y'all this because I want y'all to think of us as saints. Please, God, do not do that. We'll talk about the cult stuff in a second. Yeah. If y'all think about us as saints, it's an impossible thing for us to live up to. And it's just going to open you up to disappointment, right? Like, I have never claimed to be anything beyond an ordinary human. I'm just talking to y'all because I trust y'all. This is a relationship. This is just explaining to y'all where we're coming from. Don't look at this and say, oh my God, like he's so amazing, because then tomorrow, if we decide to take a sponsorship, then it's like I've fallen from grace. So don't put me up on a pedestal to begin with. We're laying it out for y'all, okay? When we're not, there's more. So then the other thing, which some people in chat have noticed, is when I talk about sponsorships, I'm not talking about streaming deals. Right? So, but we're not exclusive with any platform. And this is another way that we could make a ton of money, right? So we could sign exclusivity with a particular platform, and like, depending on which platform that is, we would receive piles and piles of money depending on which platform. And there are some platforms out there that would be very, very, very happy to have one of the largest mental health content creators streaming exclusively on their platform. So, and this is the thing, okay? So this is like $1 sign. This is like $5 signs. This is also like maybe $3 signs. This is like, I don't know, maybe like 5 or 10. More? Less? Less? Okay, I don't know. Anyway,
this is very like 2021.
Okay, yeah, so that's
another thing. Like, it's been a wild couple of years.
Yeah. So the next thing is we also, so this is where money can come from, right? So then the other things that we sort of have is, and then we kind of have our we can generate our own money from our community. So for example, like people have been telling us, oh, Dr. K, you should start a Patreon. People have been telling me this for 4 years. So the reason I haven't started a Patreon is really, really, really simple. I feel weird asking people for money for like free. We'll do it from time to time. There have been times where we'll do like subathons and whatever, but y'all know we don't do this much, like maybe once a year, right? And that's where like it just feels weird. So like if y'all are coming to me for help and I give you help and then I say like, oh, please give me money, it puts people in a really weird situation. Does that make sense? And do y'all kind of get that? That I think this is airplane mode. Okay, we'll turn airplane. Thank you. So it's not. I'm not saying that we won't do Patreon in the future or stuff like. It just kind of feels weird. So what always felt way better to me is like, hey, there's gonna be a fixed price. You know what you're getting. You know what the value is, and like we're gonna sell this thing to you. You know what you get. We're going to make it as affordable as possible. And like, it's kind of clear, right? So I personally feel weird, like, hey, I'm going to like do this like sacrifice for you. Oh, like Dr. K is sacrificing himself. He's such a good human being. And he's like, please, please, please. Okay, donate. Okay. Like we are doing God's work. We are doing wonderful things. We are making world better place. Nah, give me money. Nah. So there's 1,000 people out there who are gurus or like religious people or like people who are doing the Lord's work or God's work or whatever. And like many of them make tons and tons and tons of money using this model. That is not a model that I want to be a part of. So I've had the opportunity to become a spiritual guru for a while now. It's not something I'm interested in. There's all kinds of problems with it. I much prefer, and this is something I learned as a psychiatrist, right? So as a psychiatrist, like you're a medical doctor, you're helping people, but you're getting paid for it. It's so much cleaner. Yeah. There's no like, you owe me, and then the question is how much? And what do a lot of religions do? They say 10%. That is not a model I feel comfortable with. Okay? I'm not saying that these people who are religious are good or bad. It's just not my model. I'm not a guru. I don't pretend to be a guru. This is my wife. We have kids. I will sometimes enjoy things like sweets and alcohol and caffeine. And like I'm living a worldly life. I'm an ordinary person. That's what I want to be. So the next thing to consider is then we get to our things like, let's say coaching, guides, and now memberships, right? So these are the ways that y'all can give us money. Now, here's the main thing that I think,
Well,
go ahead. What?
There's the foundation.
We'll talk about that later. So the next thing is, so if we kind of look at this, here's one thing that I think we haven't done a very good job of explaining or even sharing. When we offer something at HG, it isn't for everyone. So this is the other big thing that we learned. If we look at our audience, different people want different things, have different resources, and need different things, okay? That's redundant. They want different things and they have different resources. So some people are totally content with 20-minute YouTube videos. Some people have no money. Some people have some money. Some people have a lot of money. And so when we kind of look at this, some people want in-depth lectures. Some people want something like a guide, right? Like some people want, like, I want 10 hours that Dr. K is going in depth about a particular thing. Totally fine. Other people are like, I just want an hour. I want 2 hours. I want a workshop. This is why we've also done things like we tried our first workshop. And so not everyone is looking for the same thing. And we've sort of discovered this in our community that like fully half or more of our community is completely content never spending $1 and just watching like 2 YouTube videos a week about shit that kind of interests them. Or they like, there's so many people in our community who will like listen to us on Spotify while they work out, listen to us on our commute, and like they're happy with that. They're happy to just sort of like take content the way that it's delivered now. And the other thing to also remember is that the internet is a very different place from what it was 4 years ago. The style of content that people respond to, ask for, and like kind of support is changing too. Everything is becoming more short form. So when we build this stuff, I don't know that like we're not we don't want all of this stuff. We don't want all of y'all. I mean, if you want to do it, go for it. But each of these things are built for different people, because a big part of our mission is to meet people where they're at. And our community is heterogeneous. It's not all the same. So meeting people where they're at means moving to a lot of different places. And this is why we design the things the way that we do. Because some of y'all, so coaching is, let's say, 30 to 50 bucks a week, okay? Guides are, what are they now? 25, right? And this is, speaking of ridiculousness. So the most common feedback we get on the guides are they're awesome and you're chronically underpricing. And one person, there's this hilarious post I saw on our subreddit where someone was like, wait, the guides are not a subscription? And we're like, no, dude. It's like, this was back when they were 20 bucks. You pay 20 bucks once and you get it, right? Because like, we get that people can't afford subscriptions. We didn't have a subscription at that point. We couldn't even generate the content. But like, there's also like, I'm a boomer. So I grew up prior to the days of DRM. And it fucking makes me livid that like everything out there is now like streaming. And it's like, you don't own anything. And so that actually like, and the cool thing is there's devs on our side who are like, feel the same way. And so they're like, fuck that, right? But this is also a world where there's $25 horse armor DLC. This one cosmetic for a mount in one video game earned more money than StarCraft 2 Wings of Liberty. This is the world that we live in. So there's subscription stuff and people are like out there. There's a group of people out there who are willing to pay for shit, right? So like, if I'm going to ask y'all to pay for something, it's not cosmetic, right? There's like real value to something. I would hope that, I mean, that's my internal compass. And you can say to me, Dr. K, fuck you, I disagree. There is real value in the horse armor DLC. And that's fine. Like, that's just a judgment I'm making. Like, I don't purchase cosmetics. Anyway, so different people want different stuff. And different people have different thresholds to pay. And so then, like, what we actually realized is, like, as we started growing and these numbers started growing, we started to realize, like, oh, shit, this is not going to work. And this kind of comes to sort of the last thing, which is that if we sort of talk about mental health, what we're understanding about mental health is that it's way more than education. It's way more than peer support. It's way more than even psychiatry and therapy. There are things like diet. There are things like, so this is like a gap. So I'll tell you all something that we're working on very actively is skills building and accountability. So what is the next step for HG? So the next step for HG is to try to create something that incentivizes y'all to actually fucking do something. So you can listen to a YouTube video and we'll offer some like thing at the end where you kind of go in a direction. We have a lot of in-depth stuff in the guides where we'll say you can do this meditation or this meditation, you can do this exercise. But this is where stuff like Right in the Fields was born. And the community people who and our devs who developed Right in the Fields are brilliant. We built something, right? So this is like our own, we pay for devs. So that like, we have a team of devs that programs this stuff from scratch that will actually teach you skills to increase your EQ. And Right in the Fields and Touch Grass were the two most successful community events that we had. And the reason they're successful is because thousands of people in our community started taking walks, started meditating. One of the brilliant Touch Grass things was pick some kind of wild ass fruit and turn it into a juice. And people did that. So we can tell you to meditate, but actually getting you to meditate is way harder. But if we want to fix this war on mental health that we're losing, this is what we need to fix. The problem is that this is not easy to do, right? Like, this is the problem with humanity. This is why Ozempic is such a blockbuster drug, because you can't get people to eat healthy. It's way easier to get them to like take a pill. But I am not content. Just because the world has failed at this does not mean that I'm content at like saying that this is impossible. And the fucking people in our community, and this is why it works, it's not going to be developed by an expert like me. It's going to be developed by someone who understands what these struggles are. And this is the beauty of HG, is that, like, you know, the brain, this is the brainchild of, if y'all know TechTeller, and maybe that's unfair because I'm not crediting other people like Trinian or our devs and stuff like that, but this is the brainchild of TechTeller, if y'all know who TechTeller is. And if you've like been to our subreddit or you show up on stream, you know who TechTeller is. And TechTeller is amazing, right? This guy is in a different country, and his workday is from like 7 p.m. to 4 a.m. so that he can be in meetings with us. The dude has sacrificed so much and has built so much. And like, this is amazing. Like what we were able to build, and then y'all went with it. You guys actually did it. Now, the problem is that building this costs money. And we didn't charge for it. And the reason we didn't charge for it is because, as someone was saying, I'm from Russia and I can't afford it. So now we're kind of stuck. And this doesn't even get to the pie in the sky stuff, right? So one of the things that I kind of noticed when I went to ashrams is we can say that gut microbiome is really important for mental health. We can say you should eat this healthy kind of diet and you should do this and you should do this. But the reason that ashrams are good for mental health is because people cook for you. They have all the recipes. They have all the special stuff. This like sort of yogic diet that is like very, very like low in processed things is very good for your gut microbiome, reduces anxiety, reduces depression, reduces things like that. And there's a part of me that's like, at the end of the day, I've worked in residential addiction treatment facilities and they're awesome. I've been to ashrams. And if we're really talking about mental health is, your mind is what you eat, who you spend time with, what your environment is. And I don't know how to fix this. I do not know how to provide this for y'all. But honestly, that's what it's going to take. I have no idea. So does this mean a brick and mortar facility one day? We've talked about it. The reason that we've shied away from it is because if we had a brick and mortar facility, like a rehab or like, and by the way, you know, I got an amazing job offer from someone who is like, we'll build you a technology addiction rehab and we'll give you 3 years to be profitable. Come and build it. We'll do everything. Right? So we've gotten these, and I think it would be good. The person was really awesome, really good human being who's really trying to make the world a better place. And so it was like, you know, we could do this, but this all takes money, and this is what it's going to take. And then the problem is, even if we do this, let's say that hypothetically we build something like a rehab facility, where in my heart of hearts, I've had so many conversations about this. I've talked to people who are members of our community who are retired former CEOs at the age of like 30, who are like, if you want to build it, like, let's do it, bro. But then the problem is that even if we build this and it's like this place where you come and stay for 30 days, we're going to cook for you. We're going to teach you yoga. We're going to learn this meditation stuff. Y'all are going to go through classes and workshops and whatever. Like, that would be awesome. But then the question is, who actually shows up? Because that's not, I mean, this kind of shit, you know, one of the places that I worked charges $50K a month and they're full. So this level of service, that's a little bit different because it's addiction rehab and you know, people are willing to pay and things like that. But there are like technology addiction, like residential treatment facilities in the United States that, like, you know, start at $20K a month. So even if we say, let's say we do it on the cheaper side, which is $20K a month, like, would we make a ton of money? Absolutely. You bet your ass we would. But who gets to come? The people who can afford $20K a month. The person in Russia may not be able to come. We're leaving, like, that person gets left behind, even at a $10 membership. But 99% of y'all get left behind. But if you honestly want to know what it takes to fix your mental health, this is it. The mind is the only organ of the body that requires other human beings. So you need a positive environment. You need other people there who are fucking non-toxic. Right? And what y'all need more than anything else is a life transplant. And that's where, like, I don't say that to be mean, but honestly, like, I believe that because that's what happened to me. I was 21 years old, failing out of college and fucking nothing. And I went to a place where someone cooked me food, where people were like positive and taught me how my mind works. And it turned my life around. And all of the data that we're seeing from psychiatry is that this is what it takes. Green space correlates with mental health. Sunlight exposure, exercise, pets, dogs and horses are the two best animals to treat people with trauma. And so like, if I, in my heart of hearts, what I want to do more than anything else is like, I want to find a farm.
It's true.
Like, I mean, Kruti reins me in from this shit all the time. And it's like, if we really want to go cult mode, like, we can go cult mode, right? We can buy it's not a farm, it's a ranch.
It's just land right now.
It's land. It's ranch, right? Because that's where cults go. They don't go to farms, they go to ranches. But I'm telling y'all, like, when you start growing your own food and you like put your hands in the soil, and like, that's really good for your mental health. One of the best things I do for mental health is weeding. I go out in my backyard and I weed stuff.
Okay, there's a lot more on the other side.
I know. I haven't done. My mental health is declining because I'm not weeding enough. Right. So, but I mean, this is kind of what I'm talking about. But like, if this is what it takes, how do we get there? I have no idea. And so this is like where we're coming from. We're not trying to do shit to just like make money, right? If we were doing that, we would have just taken a sponsorship. And the last thing that I want to say is you guys can look at this and you can say, oh, Dr. K, you should do this. And you may be right. I don't know if you're right or wrong. But the one thing that I can guarantee you is each person in the not each person, but I'm just going to say this is not true. Each person in the audience thinks that there is a different right path. Right? Some of y'all will say, let's say people who are from like developing countries, right? And we're really proud. Like I've had a couple of moments where I've actually been proud of the work that I am doing. And that's not most days. One day that I felt like immense pride for the work that we're doing is when I discovered that we had someone who purchased the guide in Swaziland. Like I was like, fuck yeah, this is what we started out to do because they've got nothing.
That was country number 100.
Swaziland was 100?
Mm-hmm.
We're up to like 121 now.
Yeah.
So the other thing is that even though we screw up from time to time, and we haven't even gotten into all of our fuck ups, and for those of y'all that remember hypo groups, like, you know, like we used to do product development with like Dr. K has a random idea on the internet and let's go. That only works when there's like 30 of us. Wow. That was such a disaster. People were signing up for the shit and paying for it, and they didn't even understand what the fuck was going on. Even the people running the groups were like, what's the difference between a high performance and high potential? And I was like, I don't know. It's kind of this. And so we've sort of built into this like more standard company. And the reason for that is because you can't do stuff like off the seat of your pants. I mean, that's how you end up as a canceled streamer, right? Like you can't do that. And so the struggle that we face is that, you know, each of y'all may say, oh, Dr. K, you should do this. You should just make it a nonprofit.
By the way.
Or you should just do this. Just take the sponsorships because then all the people in Ethiopia, you know, they get stuff for free and you're taking the sponsors' money. The problem that we face is whichever one we do, a different part of our community is going to be frustrated with us. A different part of our community will be disappointed with us. Each of y'all may know what the right answer is. The problem that we face is that y'all don't agree. Right? And this is why I'm grateful for all of the feedback that y'all provide. Seriously. We're doing this stream because so many people have been posting meta stuff about HE, which is really healthy, right? Like there's something in the ether of our community where we need to stop and think about what we're doing and where we're going and what's the right way to get there. And so I appreciate when everyone's like, okay, like this is like Dr. K is now like paywalling helpful content that goes against the ethos of HG. And they're not wrong. The problem is, and this is the last thing that I'll kind of talk about. So here's another like real thing that we struggle with. This is very fundamental. Do we grow? So I'm going to ask y'all, do you think as HG, we should grow?
1 for yes, 2 for no.
Yeah, or we can poll.
1 for yes, 2 for no.
So like, there's a really good point. So Pogo Laugh is saying pricing it differently in different countries could help more people in lower income countries afford it. I completely agree. Regional pricing is fantastic that way. And forget about all the stuff like, okay, people can use VPNs to get cheaper prices and whatever. And that's where like in my mind, if if you want to use a VPN to save a couple of bucks, like whatever, right? The problem with regional pricing is that it's expensive to implement.
It's also very easy to be fraudulent.
Yes,
right?
Circumvent.
Yeah.
Okay, so the majority of people are saying we're grow. So now, like, I actually think that the majority of people who are saying we should grow, I challenge that because I don't think that practically y'all like what that looks like. So the one thing that I've really seen is that when y'all get upset with HG, which I don't blame you for, because I would get upset with it. I'm upset with it, actually, because maybe this is the way I feel about it. The HG that y'all love is the HG that existed when you first joined. And any change since then is a step down. I'm right? Like, am I right? Like, you guys get that, right? So I liked it better when Dr. K did interviews. I liked it better when Dr. K was, so we heard this where we used to do interviews with people, right? And then what happened is we started interviewing streamers. And then everyone was like, well, not everyone. A lot of people were like really upset. They're like, why is he interviewing all these streamers? And then this is the core problem that we face is if we want to grow, then we have to do things differently, right? So if this is the internet, here, I guess here's like the hardcore HGers. And then when we move from 2-hour stream to 20-minute YouTube video, our reach increases by this much. So now, and here's the problem that I have. When we do this, let's say we help you 50%. And when we do this, let's say we help you 20%. I do not know whether, what the? Why is it? What the? Oh, thank you. Still a boomer chat. So if you look at the area between these two curves, okay, I do not know whether this is better than this. I don't know. So she may know. So I don't know. Like, and the problem is that each of these things, honestly, y'all, like, I don't know what's best. I don't know whether we should take money from sponsorships and whether that is a lesser evil than taking money from VC. I don't know if it's a lesser evil to go down the nonprofit route and have some donor who gets to dictate what happens because we're dependent on the teat of the donor. I don't know whether it's like better to ask y'all to pay for stuff or to get some fucking drug company to pay for everything. Right? All I know is that whatever we choose, a different group of y'all will be unhappy. And our goal is not necessarily to keep y'all happy, but also it is very important. Our compass is y'all. Y'all are the ones that tell us, hey, this is good or hey, this is bad. So we did a workshop. Some people may be confused. So we did our first workshop. And one seat in the workshop cost $200. The workshop sold out in 24 hours. And 96% of people who went to the workshop said that they would happily pay for another one. It was fantastic. Now, you could look at this and any business-minded person would say it's a no-brainer. You run one workshop a month and like that's all the money you'll ever need. Why didn't we do that? Because if all of our content is developing workshops for people who can pay for $200 a pop, then we leave everybody else behind. And so now the question is, how many workshops is it right to build so that we can generate enough money to do this stuff, to build this stuff or this stuff? And the answer is, I don't know. Okay? So this is kind of where we are. Like, we try to really think about what y'all need, and we're trying to do this fucking balancing act, which may be an absolute mess. And I think sometimes y'all, like, we send y'all mixed signals. Because there's some things that we do that are money-oriented and some things that we do that are not. And it's really fucking confusing because in the world, we think that there are two kinds of people. There are the good people, there are the charitable people, and there are the greedy people. And the problem is we're like halfway between each of those things. Don't bucket us into either one. And it's fucking confusing because then if we do something that generates money, half of y'all are like, cool, that's totally fine. The value is really good. And I'm really happy about that. Because the one thing that I never want to do is sell y'all $25 horse armor DLC. Right? right? So like we have a merch store, but we don't like push merch, right? And the reason we don't push merch is I don't know that merch will like actually make a big difference in your life. So for those of y'all that order merch and you like merch, like thank you very much. The money helps us a lot. And and like it would be different like if we started like I'm so excited about selling meditation kits. Like I want to give you all this incense and these malas and all this kind of shit, but like we haven't been able to put it together. So we'll start pushing merch the second that I believe that the merch will actually help you. But that's the thing, is now we're kind of stuck, because if we want to grow, then that means we have to change. And if we have to change, I want to keep doing what we used to be doing, but then we have to figure out, like, I don't know if I should be running workshops, because we make more money, but we reach fewer people.
Okay, hi, can I just say something? So out of everything that we do, the most expensive resource is his time. So the time we are now spending on things like... Okay, so the most expensive resource at Healthy Gamer is Alok's time. And the time that we are spending on YouTube videos, on resource packs, on workshops, on memberships, the reason we can do that is because we have taken a couple of select sponsors, we have done a couple of paid corporate events, things like that. But we would rather be building stuff for you guys than, I don't know, talking to a CBD sponsor. Like categorically, we don't work with CBD companies, right? They're the ones putting all the big money on the table. But I don't know. It's basically a way for us to kind of reclaim Alok's time to build stuff that we think works best for you guys. A lot of it we can do for free. Some of it we cannot. But nobody is saying that you have to do something you don't want to do, right? If you don't want to do the membership, if it's not in your price range, if you don't see the value, don't do it. No problem. If you don't want the guides, if you'd rather go with the resource packs, no problem. It's not a forced decision. We're trying to build kind of like more of a buffet than like, you have to do this, then this, then this, then this.
And just to be clear, so like, the reason we built resource packs, right? So these are like free resources that are longitudinal and are kind of like a guide. I mean, they're not like really, they're closer to a guide. The reason we built them is because so many of y'all said even the guide is too expensive. So then we sat back and we started to wonder, what can we build that we can offer for free? And so the resource packs are like content plus.
Okay, friend, you have talked too much. Let's take some questions. I think they're over here.
Oh, okay.
We did what is HG's goal. Just to like very clearly, our goal is to make accessible, affordable, inclusive mental health resources for this community. We're not trying to solve every problem there is. We're trying to serve this community. I heard a couple of you guys, or I read a couple of you guys were asking, well, what if we just want to kind of support? We did create a Healthy Gamer Foundation, which is a 501c3 nonprofit, and we're issuing about $20,000 of holiday help grants. So that's our way to kind of give back to this community, either directly through grants like that, or ideally what we're doing is partnering in the industry to run research projects. The industry is in a bit of a chaotic moment right now, as you can see with the platform wars, the dev studios laying people off. So it's been a bit of a slower start than I would have liked, but that's where, if you just want to support and kind of take a tax write-off, that's where you do it.
Okay.
What is the goal of content?
So you want to read that out?
Sure. All right. So these are some questions that have been submitted through Reddit and YouTube comments. And I want to watch chat too, but I really wonder if you could make that bigger, Alok. All right. So one question was, Dr. K used to do these in-depth videos, but these days, most of the videos I see from him are shorter, have more clickbait, and repeat a lot of old concepts.
Yeah. So that's a great question. Someone also asked me, how do I feel about the content that I make? So I'd say that the most frustrating thing for me as a Vata is that for 4 years, I've been answering basically the same 200 questions. So
You're like tech support.
yeah,
turned it off.
Have you? That's a great analogy. So it's basically like I'm tech support for the mind, right? So I'm using my racial bonus as an Indian for my +5 to tech support skill.
Try resetting the room.
So it's usually like DC 8 checks, and I've got like a tech support skill of like 15. So it's kind of boring. So, and this is where like hopefully now y'all have a little bit more context for this question. That's why it's like a hard question to answer simply. So the answer for why we make short kind of clickbaity content is because we're making that for everyone who doesn't know who we are, right? So if our goal is to grow, then we need to reach more people. And the appeal of people on the internet is changing. And so if we want to grow, and we're not saying that we're like willing to grow at all costs. So it's not like we do, I mean, we try to deliver healthy.
I want to type to chat.
No, you can't type. I haven't figured out how to. I failed my tech support check. Hold on. Let's see if we can at least do this. Give me a second, chat.
How are y'all doing though? Y'all doing good?
View my channel.
This chair sucks.
The other thing that we did not talk about is we did not discuss our. Hold on. Let's see if we can do this. At least you can have this. This is the best I can do.
Having to watch ads on your own channel is like.
Yeah.
Such insult
YouTube
to injury.
YouTube ads. So y'all are right that content is like changing on the YouTube channel. So the way that, and that's because that's for a different audience, right? So for those of y'all that are OG HGers, where I used to talk for 2 hours about something, that content is harder and harder to produce. It's not that we don't do it anymore. It's that we split our time between making the shorter videos and doing the in-depth, more deep dive kind of things. The other thing that's changed is that I do some of that stuff. The other slice of time that is now hard is that like I go places. So like we went to I made like 4 or 5 trips out to California this year for like the Streamies, the APA, like going out there for like podcasts and things like that. So we're also doing some in-depth stuff at other channels. So that's where some of it's going. But basically, like I used to be able to do in-depth content 100% of the time. And now I'm able to do in-depth content 30% of the time. Now you can say, Dr. K, I want you to do more in-depth content. You should increase it to 50 or 60%. And that's totally fair. But the moment that we start moving in that direction is the moment that we stop growing, which is also okay. I'm not saying that we need to keep growing. But that's also where we asked you, like, should we continue to grow? And if I had sort of not gone for growth, then like I literally wouldn't be here right now. I would have just stayed in my office and then, just seen 30 people. And I'm sure that if you kind of think about it, if you're one of my patients and I stop seeing you because now I'm doing HG, you are getting a very watered down version of what you used to get, because you used to get 8 months with Dr. K for 1 hour a week. And now it's like I'm doing 2-hour streams with like 2,000 people. So like every step you lose depth and you gain breadth. Part of the reason that we were thinking about memberships is because I actually miss that stuff. That's my favorite stuff. She's already said once that I've talked too much, and I know she's thinking it again. And so I would love to do, I'm doing like all kinds of like, I'm learning all kinds of cool stuff. So like, that's where I love the trauma workshop. So the trauma workshop was like, let's go for 8 hours and really understand from start to finish what trauma does to you and what to do about it.
Okay. But for like, I think the short answer is, why has the content gotten more clickbaity? I hear your feedback, but I also see the analytics and it just performs better. And so for us to not have to make that trade-off of YouTube performing better versus you guys getting, because for those of you who are asking for more in-depth stuff, the majority of you have been with us for a long time. So there are distinct kind of user journeys, if you will, coming in. One is new people coming in with the more kind of bite-sized content, and then they kind of go on their path and they're going down the library that you guys have already been through. So they're just further behind than you guys are. The way you guys think and go about your lives now is so different than it was 2 or 3 years ago. So the solutions that we're putting out now aren't really for you. They're for people that are new to the community. So how do we, like, I hate it when companies do that, when all they care about is new customers and they forget about the people that they already have. Like, I hate it. I hate it when gyms do it, when cell phone companies do it, like promotional offers for new customers only. I hate that crap. So what do we build for people that have been with us, who have been supporting us, who have purchased from us, who have, trusted us? That's where we're kind of at right now.
Can I? So there's a comment from Modest Triangle. I feel like people who negatively critique your new videos should be grateful that you do it in the first place. It's like free education. I appreciate the sentiment. And also, like, there's a part of me that completely agrees with you. There's people who are like, okay, like, why aren't you making new long videos? And there's a part of me that wonders, like, how many of our 400 or 600 long form videos have you watched? Have you watched all of them? Because a lot of people are really upset about the new videos coming out, but we have a library. If y'all want deeper content, we have a whole library of like 2 or 3 years of doing really deep content.
It's just a lot of content.
At the same time, I mean, telling people to be grateful, I think, is not useful. Like, I think that feedback is still helpful to us, right? Knowing where y'all are, what you like, what you don't like, that's the backbone of what we do. So I may have an initial emotional reaction of frustration. It's like, how many, we've made 800 free videos, like, how many more do you want? And apparently it's like, what some people want is, it's not that they want more free videos, it's that 800 free videos is not what upsets them. What upsets them is that there are 20 not free videos. And that, I think, is like fair to feel that way, right? And we also have to understand that some of these people are coming, like this person who commented, like, they're coming from countries where they cannot afford a single paid video. And this is a topic that they really could benefit from. And, like, I don't blame someone for being frustrated by that, right? That's completely reasonable. If I were in their shoes, I'd feel the same way too. I really want to watch this video, but this guy is paywalling it and I can't afford it. And of course, it's reasonable to be frustrated by that. I want to show you all something, though, about YouTube performance, because people are talking about clickbait and why your title's so negative. So here is a video here's a stream that I really, really liked. Hold on a second. So this is just looking at our... Hold on. Okay. This was one of my favorite things to do. You're not crazy for being sick, understanding psychosomatic illness. This is one of my favorite lectures to prepare. I talked about psychosomatic illness for 1 hour and 38 minutes. And it has 143,000 views. Compare that to Why Therapy Sucks for Men, has 1.4 million views and is 17 minutes. Now, the reason we make this kind of content is I'm going to ask y'all a question because I do not know the answer. Which one of these videos makes the world a better place? I don't know. I don't know whether helping 143,000 people who suffer from psychosomatic illness in a deeper way is better than helping 1.4 million people understand the challenges in therapy for men. I don't know. So what we try to do is all of it, right? And the reason that we sort of started this whole the memberships thing is that I did a corporate event recently in San Francisco. I don't know if it was it publicized? Do people know, or is that NDA? Okay. So, like, I was invited to YouTube headquarters to give a talk, right? And this is like a paid engagement. And so, like YouTube, like they pay well. It was a super cool event. I really loved being there. It was really fantastic. But now I've got a choice. So, like, if I want to continue building stuff like this for free, the money needs to come from somewhere. So either I can do paid engagements with YouTube, which is cool. Like, I'm really grateful for it. Honestly, it was really fantastic. But then the problem is, like, if I don't do that, the money needs to come from somewhere. And so then what I was sort of thinking is, like, how can we make some money, not sell our soul right this second, but I'm sure we'll sell our soul at some point. Every person has their price, and I'm human, right? So thus far, I've been able to resist sums of money large sums of money. But I mean, one day someone will offer me a pile of money that'll be too big, and maybe I'll be able to resist. Maybe I won't. So far, the numbers that I've resisted have been very, very high. So I believe in myself, but I'm only human. And so I want to do both. And one way to do both is to stop going to places that pay me a sizable pile of money to go and give like a lecture or a workshop or something like that. I would much rather spend 1 hour with 1,000 of y'all than the same amount of money with like 20 people, right? Who are like executives or whatever. And I'm not saying we're not going to continue to do that. And it's like the answer is like we end up doing some blend of everything. And then it's like kind of confusing for y'all. So when it comes to YouTube, other people are also sort of saying like, why is the stuff so negative? And that's where it's like, yeah, sometimes things are positive and they work really well. Like discipline is actually an emotion. So we're sort of thinking about this, why chasing red flags leads to love. I don't think either of these are negative. But like some of this stuff is negative. Like how to change your personality. I don't know if that's negative, but this is negative. You need to stop being a simp. That's negative. And the reason that we do that is because if we sort of look at our content, like what not engages people, but a lot of it is like, I feel personally attacked. That's what I'm shooting for. because the other reason that we make negative styling thumbnails is because that video is designed to fix a problem. So we've made videos that are like emotions 101 and no one fucking clicks it. It can be the best content on the universe, but unless it's solving a problem on the platform of YouTube, you need to use clickbait because you're competing against people who clickbait. And as lovely as y'all are, you have the same brain that everybody else has. You have a human brain. And people on the YouTube platform have figured out how to exploit it.
The other thing is, like, we were doing a lot of interviews and stuff during the pandemic. But we had nothing to do then, right? So we were all watching content for hours and hours. And now we're kind of back to work, back to school. We don't have that kind of time anymore to watch 2-hour lectures. I hear some of you guys saying, well, I like it in the background for this or that. And there are probably about 100 interviews on the channel. So I think what we need to do a better job of is organizing playlists, podcasts, things like that to help it just easier to find what you're looking for because the library is really overwhelming. But anyway, let's move on. This is supposed to be a Q&A, friend.
No.
AMA.
I want to rant.
Yeah. Or do we like ranting or can we move on?
Yeah, we can move on.
Yeah, please. Why don't we break the ice with like a fun question and move away from this for like just a second?
Yeah, do y'all have...
Does anybody have a random wild question?
General questions.
Playlist would be great.
Yeah, so that's like another prime example of like, yeah, it would be great, but...
Well, there are playlists. You got to click around to find them, but they're up there. Both are okay.
Packets. Dr. K really is talking too much. Sorry, y'all got me started. See, that's good feedback. So
speaking of Russia, I'm really proud of kind of what we did there. We had some Russian clients, we had some Ukrainian clients, and we just subsidized their coaching. We kept them on the platform. Of course, the scheduling got a little volatile, which makes total sense given the circumstances, but we were able to subsidize coaching on both sides. So we're doing what we can, but you guys have to remember we're a content channel that has different products and services for mental health, but ultimately, like, we're small potatoes in the grand scheme of things. Asking us to fix things like currency exchanges and like global conflicts, things like there's only so much we can do, and we do everything we can, but please give us some grace for not being able to tackle these like ills of the world at scale.
Yeah, one thing I just building on that for a second. So I'm really grateful that y'all have given us a chance and that y'all continue to support us. And for those of y'all that have been here for a while, you're more aware of our many missteps. And because we're learning this, right? So like the thing that I'm an expert at is like arguably psychiatry and arguably spirituality. It's not starting a digital mental health startup. In that way, Kruti is awesome. But she also like, you graduated what? HG was started when you were still in school.
I love this comment. You're
What?
the best potatoes, sweet potatoes. That's so cute.
Um,
Thank you, Kiwi.
So someone saying I watch a 2-hour roast session of Dr. K. We did that a couple years ago. So that's like sitting on our YouTube channel. And so someone else is saying Dr. K ranting is beautiful. Other people are saying Dr. K is talking too much. This is the problem, right? Is that people want different things. And so the reason we keep on building different shit is not for each of you to do everything. It's because different people want different things. We're trying to meet y'all where y'all are at.
It is not currently possible to do one-on-one therapy with Olog. Sorry, guys. Time constraints.
Yeah. Why do you only have 1 hour in BG3? Because I'm doing this. Dr. K book list. So people have been asking that for years. I don't have a list. I'm working on making one, but I can make a couple of recommendations. So I'm finally getting around to reading Body Keeps the Score by Bessel van der Kolk, and I think it's like one of the best 5 books I've ever read. It's just beautifully crafted. And I'm very familiar with van der Kolk's like primary research, like his publications. So I know a lot of it, but it's very beautifully written. What do I think about Alan Watts? Oh, there's one about how is it like to work together as a married couple?
I think this is a great question in like the creator community in general, where a lot of creators are kind of working with partners and spouses at this point. I think it's good. I think we kind of hired each other. What do you think?
I love it. So I think it's challenging. I think that, honestly, I think, can I think for a second? I've got something to say.
Sure.
So some time ago, people arrived at the conclusion that working with your spouse or family members or things like that is a mistake. Don't mix business and pleasure or stuff like that. And I think that is a good general rule. But I think the moment that we all started believing that, we actually atrophied or rusted in our ability to successfully do that. So we stopped practicing navigating these like complex relationships. And I think in doing so, we actually lost something very, very important. So one of the things that I'm really lucky with, and I know very few people who have this, is that we're able to have a work-life balance that is like a unit. So I never have to explain to my spouse and deal with her frustration when I have to work late. She knows I have to work late. She knows exactly why I have to work late. I wouldn't be working late unless she greenlit it. And on the flip side, I know exactly when my spouse needs to work too much. And then like, I kind of know, right? So as her husband, I know that, holy shit, this stuff is going on in the company right now. And so she's been grinding. I know what's going on because like, I'm a part of those meetings. I'm not a part of those meetings, but I know what's going on. And so then I know that, okay, at home, like I'm going to have to cook. I'm going to have to take care of this. I'm going to have to take care of this because she's working. So the one really cool thing is that there's a lot of frustration and conflict so even when I was like, a full-time practicing physician, and I tell Kruti like, oh, I'm on call. And she's like, damn it. Like, why do you have to be on call? Like, I wanted to go out this weekend and like this stuff like that. And she's understandably frustrated.
I went to sleep this weekend, more like.
Yeah. And so the cool thing is like, it's also pretty neat because I don't have to worry. I mean, hopefully I don't have to worry about my CEO stabbing me in the back which can happen sometimes in companies, right? So you can get, I don't know if you guys were paying attention to what happened at OpenAI, but that seemed like, some interesting stuff for a hot second. I'd like to think that we're resistant to that sort of thing. On the flip side, some of the people that we talked to, someone who was an angel investor who, as we've said, we haven't taken money anyway, but they were kind of saying, I never invest in husband and wife couples because if there's a divorce or something happens in your personal life, like the company implodes. So that's a, I don't know if that's true or not, but it's a concern. Overall, I think it's like pretty good, and I'm grateful for it. And she's a fantastic person to work with. I, on the other hand,
Alok is like the quintessential brilliant solo contributor who is a chaotic manager, but you kind of need his opinion on everything. But he's I would not say management is his strong suit. Performance reviews this year are going to be fun.
So there's a question about members are able to drive future content. My concern is that F2P voices aren't given as much weight.
I've already responded in chat.
Okay.
Which is
cool.
But generally, I think the sentiment is, do memberships now kind of hijack content for everyone? And I'm saying that there's two different workflows. So membership content is created for members. There's definitely going to be ideas and inspiration from there that will tease out against general audience. But general audience, I think most of our ideation, whether or not we're doing a good job, is in analytics, but ideation comes from comments. So I don't know if you guys know this, but we read a lot of what you guys write. We read through the comments. We read through the Reddits. Sometimes y'all hurt our feelings and sometimes y'all make our day. But we read it.
Oh yeah.
Oh, are you?
Yeah.
Oh, you're gonna say it.
No. So I am a lurker in our stuff, and I was very upset to discover that someone, probably a mod, tagged my Reddit account with the tag of Dr. K on our subreddit. But it was actually really fun when people didn't like. I guess now they know, and I mean some people knew, but like it was fun to be able to participate on subreddit without people knowing who I am. In other news, about a year ago, I got banned from our Discord. This is a great story. And the reason I got banned is because I showed up. And then the mods were like, bruh, you can't do that. And I was like, why not? And they're like, it creates chaos. And I was like, okay, fine. So now
honestly, our mods have so much power.
And they should.
They
so they get to.
Yeah. But it's amazing how they're like, no, you don't come here.
So I think it's like they're the experts. So I do what they say.
Where's that?
And the mods are also fantastic. I mean, I think they had some concerns about some of the stuff that we're building. So hopefully we'll be sitting down with them soon and really listening to them. And for those of y'all that are concerned about, the voices of F2P, that's something that's something we're very aware of. And part of the reason we're doing the stream is like, this is a chance to communicate with everybody. And the last thing is that one of the ways that we do it is that we're really happy about, so when we launched memberships, it did not cut into our F2P content. It's an additional thing. What it's cutting into is basically like corporate events. So that's what we're trying to replace. And if we can replace corporate events that fund and fuel our free stuff with stuff directly from the community and make content, right? Like that's a win-win. So that's what we're shooting for. And that's why it's like, and it's cool because we're going to do four things and it'll be in depth and it'll be whatever y'all want. So I'm excited about that.
Shout out to Jem.
Oh, Jem is awesome.
Yeah.
Jem is great.
Yeah, Alok has good sweaters, right? This is some of my better work here. You know what's rich? They're saying we're overthinking it.
I see that.
Are we overthinking it?
I don't.
I'm not generally an overthinker.
I mean, I really appreciate the sentiment, but you know, we got in this to think about you.
We were thinking for a second, if you will.
Yeah, I think it's like, that's what we're here for, right? So we think about y'all, like that's my job, is to think about y'all. And I think about what do people need. I read comments, I do all that kind of stuff.
Can I interest you in a mug?
Yeah.
Are antipsychotics healthy?
Yeah, I've seen that question many times. The answer is...
I think you should do a breakdown on like psychosis and antipsychotics and stuff. I also think you should do some more stuff on neurodivergence, personally.
Okay. Can I talk?
Yes.
Okay. So let's talk about this for a second. So I would like to do more stuff on antipsychotics and schizophrenia. So let me explain to y'all why I haven't yet. So if we look at something like mood disorders like depression or anxiety, between 30 and 50% of people have depression or anxiety at some point in their life. Schizophrenia and psychosis is about 1%. So part of the reason that we haven't done more content on psychosis is because it affects fewer people. Now that doesn't mean that I don't want to. We've done streams on psychosis. So I think my 2 or 3 favorite streams, one of them is on psychosis. I think we talked about Brian Charnley and all that kind of stuff. It's like, actually it's a lecture on psychosis that was one of the formative moments that made me want to become a psychiatrist. So there was this just brilliant lecture that was given by someone, a guy named Dr. Carlin, and it was like so cool, and I fell in love with psychiatry. And then I have a video planned about neurodivergence and software development.
Ooh, that sounds good.
Yeah. So but some of these things like take time. So just to give y'all
I mean, if it takes time, that means it takes money. That's what I hear.
So just to give y'all a sense, you guys want to leak? So, you know, making YouTube videos is hard. So like these are all of the videos I'm working on right now. These are the videos that we've actually filmed. And like each of these involves like a fair amount of research and stuff like that. And we need to get better. Like someone pointed out to us.
Is this really your opening? All right. So we're lazy fuckers. Am I right?
Yes. Yes. That is correct.
Okay.
And so people ask, I mean, okay, so like, let me just tell you about this video. Okay. So I'm a lazy fucker. And like, you know, this, when people are saying like you make negative content, and it's like what happens is I wake up on a particular day and I'm like, why the fuck am I like this? Why am I just lazy? And then I think to myself, okay, what am I going to do about this? And then I like think about all of the yogic training and all of the science. And I'm like, let me stop being a lazy fucker. And then I was like, you know what? I'm going to teach other people how to stop being lazy fuckers. But if we make this video, I feel excited about it because this is really what the video is born from. It's like, I'm tired of being a lazy fucker. But the thumbnail is going to be negative. Okay? So there are also other things, like I've been working on a deep dive into asexuality for a long time. I don't quite know what this is going to look like. But for everyone who is like, okay, I am aromantic, asexual, you know, like, am I ace? Am I not ace? Like, I'm not attracted to these people. Like, you know, but the thing is, it's complex. Like, asexuality is, hold on a second. Here.
They're calling you a one-document anarchist, and they are right.
I beg to differ. I don't think so. We're not going to let that slide. No, sirree. That's silly. Okay, look, you guys think I'm a one-document anarchist?
I don't think I.
This is November, December 2023. This doesn't include all whatever this random crap is, or March, April, or like all this other stuff in January and whatever. Like this is not one document anarchy. If only my you know why I make multiple documents? Because one starts to get so unwieldy. Like once I cross like 20 or 30,000 words, which by the way is like a third of a book in terms of length. The average nonfiction book is about 80,000 words. Once my gaming PC, which now agreed is a little bit dated. It's like 4 years old, 5 years old, 6 years old. Once my gaming PC starts lagging when I open up Word, I know it's time to make a new document.
So like I said, Alec's a brilliant individual contributor, but he is hard to work with as a manager. What you got?
I just want to, so like, people were asking about.
Just be careful about bumping this. Every time you bump it, it's like shockwaves.
That's because we need to get someone to build us a good setup. Like this is beautiful, but it's not fun. Like we have to keep on passing the microphone. You'd think at the size of content creators we are, we'd have a setup where you would have a real chair and then this microphone would be better. So, like this is a great paper. I don't know if you guys can see that. Oh. Yeah, asexuality, sexual orientation, paraphilia, sexual dysfunction, or none of the above. Like, I don't know. But that's going to be a video one day. And then the rest of the binder is all that. Like, we're looking at, like, you know, archives of sexual behavior, which is not nearly as titillating as one would hope. So yeah, we're working on stuff.
How titillating do you want things? Scale of 1 to 10.
So I'd like to, okay. How titillating do I want things? So I know that people have been concerned about how we have paid services, but if you really want to know how titillating I like things, check out our OnlyFans. And then you'll see exactly how titillated I enjoy getting.
Oh God.
And then we can do some AOE titillation.
Great. How do we feel about creating HG content in different languages? I feel really good about it, but I don't know exactly how we would segment it out without it being too complicated to keep up with. I think just having closed captions in different languages would probably be the easiest, but I don't know, man. I'd really like to get this one language right and then be able to build it out. I feel like we're still not quite there.
So one of the cool things was, we did a sponsorship for Babbel, and so I started relearning Spanish, and I had a conversation yesterday about, do I need to relearn Mandarin? So, because I'm really thinking about, we can translate stuff, but like, wouldn't the content be better if I just knew the language? But that takes some time. So, 我忘了很多中文，可是我不练习中文。我们可不可以练习中文? Right? Like we could do that. I learned Mandarin originally to read like ancient texts on Tai Chi and in Chinese medicine.
How'd that go?
Really well.
Good.
It was good.
Only chance. Instead of y'all are funny.
थोड़ा थोड़ा हिंदी बोलते हैं लेकिन बहुत नहीं.
His Hindi might be the most offensive.
Yeah. People get really upset when I speak Hindi. Is he promoting his OnlyFans in Mandarin? Yeah, I wish.
That'd be awesome. All right. Do we go to a serious question, or let's just vibe for a bit?
I mean, we're at almost 2 hours. So
okay. Well, 1 hour was you just monologuing, so.
Well, I get to do some things as the
what?
As the creator.
As the pretty face, as the talent.
As the talent. Oh my God! Can I tell you? Dr. K is so hard to work with his talent. He's so high maintenance. Oh my god. He needs to
Such a
have this thing
diva.
in this way. It's such a diva. Yeah, we just vibe.
Okay.
BG3 stream when? Maybe today if y'all want. You guys want to do BG3 stream?
We have to go to the zoo today.
I know, but I canceled my afternoon meetings or rescheduled them. Once again, to the frustration and at the cost of the patience of people that I work with who are super awesome.
Wait. I thought you wanted to use that time for something else. Not to play video games.
I was going to use that time for work.
I only said it was okay for you to cancel those streams because you wanted to do other stuff.
I was working. I needed it to work.
Busted.
And so I'm working, right? Because Chad is asking me to play BG3, and part of my job is to play video games on stream.
Let me tell you what your job is. No, if you really want to, it's fine.
So it's a great question. Thoughts on dyslexia. So this is fascinating. So, all right, y'all got me excited. Can I go? Okay. Okay, so dyslexia, I think, is way more impactful than we think it is. So recently, I've had a couple of patient interactions that have really opened my eyes to this. So, when we're in school, we have some people that have learning disabilities or learning differences or whatever the term is nowadays. But we have some people whose brains have difficulty processing the information in the way that it's presented in school. So the inability to read or write. The really interesting thing is that once people leave school and we kind of like get past it or we fix it, we think that we're done. But I've seen a lot of actually disturbing data. It's anecdotal, so it's not data, so never mind that word. But I've seen like a lot of stuff that I've started to realize. I've talked with a couple of psychotherapists that dyslexia may actually impact things like internal dialogue, the ability to do things like cognitively reframe, and even things like emotional awareness. So if we look at dyslexia, it's a way bigger problem than we give it credit for. So it's just, I mix up words when I read them, right? That's all we sort of say dyslexia is. But if we really look at it, that means that there's a part of our brain, like the language processing part of our brain, that is somehow impaired. Now, if that part of our brain is impaired, we don't know that the written word being garbled is the only way in which it is that you have a problem. Because if we sort of think about it, if a child is dyslexic, we do not assess them for whether they have difficulty verbalizing their emotions. We do not assess their capacity to cognitively reframe. Like, those aren't things that we test, but those could be deficits that correlate with dyslexia. So it's very possible that if you have dyslexia, there are many things that other people can do, which you take for granted, which we never talk about, that are actually harder for you and make your life harder. Another really good example of this is forming a narrative to put things past you. So if we look at like, so there's a really cool study that came out recently that showed that the reason that trauma is so hard to get past is because we literally do not move past it. So the way, the parts of the brain that trauma lights up are the parts of our brain that govern present experience. They don't actually activate memory circuits in the brain. So if we look at like, how do you get trauma from being in the present to in the past and move past it? What you literally have to do is develop a narrative, use language, and then it stops activating the frontal parts of your brain, and it starts living in your memory centers. And that's when we heal from trauma. And so even that process requires a certain level of verbal proficiency. So it's very possible that dyslexia can do everything from make it harder for you to understand your emotions, therefore harder for you to communicate, therefore harder for you to successfully participate in relationships, make it harder for you to cognitively reframe, which reduces your capacity for resilience and increases burnout, and also maybe even get past traumatic events, like things like breakups and stuff like that. So we don't really know, but it's like there's a real possibility there that dyslexia can be quite debilitating. Really cool question. Can you do a trauma guide? Maybe. Check back in a month. Or two.
This is like such a basic, but like, I don't know why I didn't think about it, but your ideas list for videos, I wonder if we can just share that and get some feedback on what people want to see for second, third.
Should we leak this or no?
You can if you want to. It's not the worst thing.
This is sitting at 5,600 words right now. That'll grow a lot over the next couple of weeks.
You have a deadline, friend.
I know. I have 6 days.
So you're going to play some BG3, right?
I have 6 days to write 60,000 words. I can do it. We're fine. We'll be good. It's all up here.
Once again, he's a brilliant individual contributor. Go down here.
Does that have to do with Broca's area? Undoubtedly. You said Boca's, but I think it's Broca's. Oh, man. I always get Tai Chi and Chai Tea confused. How have I never... Oh, my God. My mind is just blown. Have you read Gabor Mate? Absolutely. I think In the Realm of Hungry Ghosts is like... I think Mate is like a bit long-winded for my taste, but it's excellent. Like, as a thinker, he's awesome.
They were asking about Alan Watts earlier.
I think Alan Watts is great, but I think his system of meditation is not what I like. So I like the more technical Raja Yoga, Tantric, mantra, harness energies of the universe, activate your chakras, really specific kinds of meditations that do specific things, even cognitively. So like this meditation will train your mind to do this and stuff like that. Alan Watts doesn't really do that. So he's a very, very, I think, skilled meditator and is from the Buddhist tradition, or I would guess the Mahayana tradition, just based on his teachings. And when it comes to Buddhism, like, I'm a bigger fan of Vajrayana.
This YouTube chat thing is so dumb. How do I get out of this?
I don't know.
Oh, keyboard? Okay, here we go. We're going to go to the zoo later, like in a couple hours. What's the book that had the greatest impact on you?
So a couple. The first one that pops into my head is actually Count of Monte Cristo. So Count of Monte Cristo is really what made me, it was her recommendation. It's my favorite book, and it made me really like, I've always liked fiction, but it made me really like fall in love with fiction. And I think it's just such a beautifully written book, and like, it's great in terms of narrative and stuff like that. I know that, I think a couple of other books that I think are really good from a spirituality perspective. So I do think that Yoga, the Alpha and Omega by Osho is very good. I like, let me think, what else? Kundalini Tantra by the Bihar School of Yoga is really good. Vigyan Bhairav Tantra is really good.
You
What
just
else?
read a fantasy novel that you were really into, right? Or
Oh, yeah.
series?
So other things are Psychodynamic Diagnostic Manual is brilliant. But I don't know if that's what y'all are looking for.
There's a Monte Cristo anime? That doesn't surprise me.
This one's good. But it's like a tome. But it's really good. What else is good?
Do self-help books really help?
Yeah, I think so. I think if there was no utility to them, then I don't think that they would sell. And the other thing is, I wrote, we didn't even talk about this. So one thing that is kind of confusing, or was confusing for me, is I wrote a book about parenting. So specifically like helping kids who struggle with technology addiction. And that also is kind of like a weird thing to do because, it's not a book for y'all, a small slice of y'all, because some of y'all have kids. But the reason I wrote that book is I was really thinking about like, how do we fix this problem? And I can't help but think that the one thing that would make this community disappear, in the sense that we wouldn't need to be here, is good parenting. And so when I was sort of thinking about, if I died tomorrow, what would happen? How could I help? If I die tomorrow, how can I help the most people? And what the conclusion that I came to is, if I can help parents protect their kids from technology, then that's the biggest impact I'll have on the world. So that's why that's the first book that I wrote. I think that if y'all have kids, I think it's pretty good. If y'all don't have kids and you want to support us anyway, by all means, get it. I still do think that for those of y'all that are interested in like communication and relationships, a lot of our core communication skills, even stuff that we teach our coaches, is in that book. So that book is really about repairing a relationship between parent and child. So if y'all are interested in that kind of stuff, the setting is going to be different, right? Because we're talking about technology addiction, but it's great because we explain to parents how technology affects their brain. So it could be useful for y'all too, to understand why you were addicted. Because I explained my theory of video game addiction in the book. So it's not, y'all aren't the target audience, to be completely honest, but there are pieces of information in there that I think could be, I learned that stuff by helping this community, because I tried to teach parents how to talk to their kids. And I think that some of that stuff is like basic. I mean, stuff that I do in, Will there be an audiobook? Yes.
He's narrating it.
I'm narrating it.
But I've seen him, obviously, as a parent. He's an incredible parent. So, as an example, one of our oldest kid was getting made fun of by our youngest kid and the two kids that they carpool with. And she was feeling really left out and really hurt. And she asked at bedtime, do you see it? Do you see them being mean to me? And that was a really proud moment for you, right, Alok? Where you were like, wow, she's actually coming out of her own head, out of her own experience to see, like, is it just me that thinks that they're being mean to me, or is this really happening? I think it's really cool. It's a very, even at our age, right, we don't necessarily say like, oh, maybe it's just me. We kind of think of our experience as the truth, and that's what's really happening. And so for an 8-year-old to kind of be like, is this happening or is it just me? I thought was really cool. Yeah, we're proud of her. He's an amazing parent. Time
will tell.
I got you. Don't worry.
I think, dude, the kids are OP, man. Like, it's super cool. I click pre-order and it doesn't go anywhere. Oh my God, that's devastating.
Classic.
See, this is the shit that if we had a little bit more money, we could probably fix. What a fail. Y'all can go to any website where you can get books and it should be available.
It's on Audible. If you want to just use an Audible credit, like that helps us. And you don't have to, spend real money. Give the man a best dad mug. Do you want to know something really cute? Because I've seen comments of like, you're my internet dad and stuff. A lot of times when he's scripting, he's sitting down with his like #1 dad mug and he's like getting into dad mode a lot of times when he's on his one document for all of his video scripts. But he definitely goes dad mode.
Yeah, so the other thing that I think a lot of people don't think about is, for every one YouTube video that gets produced, or even for that matter for like a deep dive that I do, I make actually 3 videos, and 2 of them just don't see the light of day because they're not good enough. And so the content creation process for me has also changed a lot. So a couple of other things that have changed is that as we do more and more topics, we reach the barrier of my knowledge. So the first 2 years I was streaming, it was very easy to cover all the stuff that I was already an expert in. But as we dive into things like autism spectrum, or I'm doing a ton of research also right now on menstrual cycles. So I have kind of a hot take, which kind of like blew my mind when I kind of connected, is that we think of our disease model as fixed. So when we think of something like ADHD, we say you are diagnosed with ADHD, and it's ADHD. But if we sort of think about the way that we understand disease, we assume that the human being is the same all 30 days. And so there's a ton of actually emerging research that ADHD worsens throughout different periods of the menstrual cycle. We know that there's PMDD, premenstrual dysphoric disorder. So we know that there's also premenstrual syndrome and stuff like that. So we know there's fluctuations. But I think it's actually really bizarre, and it's actually a failure in the field of medicine that we have not recognized that probably each illness that a woman experiences has fluctuations in its intensity and even pathophysiology depending on the menstrual cycle. Because we think ADHD is the same on day 1, day 15, and day 30. But literally for half of the population, it fluctuates. And it's crazy to think that we have a model of medicine that does not account for fluctuations in 50% of people on the planet, or 52% of people on the planet. It's kind of the opposite of psychotherapy, where I think psychotherapy, since we saw historically so many women in psychotherapy, it's biased towards women, not in a discrimination way. But when 70% of your population benefits from a particular thing and you study your population, it's going to be pushed by that 70%. So this is why I think talk therapy has become the gold standard. And then on the flip side, though, I think while it's hard, I don't think psychotherapy is designed specifically with men in mind. I do think that the rest of medicine is not designed with women in mind. And there's actually a ton of scary emerging data about things like pain control and stuff like that, like real horror stories about IUD insertion. And people will say yeah, you're going to have some soreness, but IUD insertion is like a surgical procedure that can be crippling for some people. So I'm studying all kinds of stuff.
Seeing some feedback about menstrual cycle and ADD, ADHD specifically. I think that would be really interesting.
That's what I'm digging into specifically. And so we'll almost certainly do a video about that. But it got me thinking as I was reading, I actually think that I wonder if there is a menstrual fluctuation of any diagnosis, including things like cholesterol, heart disease, diabetes.
Yeah.
We already know that mood and anxiety are changed, but what about things like trauma, infection susceptibility, all kinds of stuff?
I'm just seeing some kind of newcomers. Hi, my name is Kruti. It's Kruti. I'm Mrs. K, and also I run the business side of Healthy Gamer. So we're just here chatting, taking some questions, some fun and some serious, as there's been. I think we've grown so much, and I used to kind of pop in and out of stream. So I felt like I knew you guys, and I haven't been here in a while because we've been so busy. So I'm just popping in to say hi and take some questions. You looking for an article?
No, I have articles.
Okay. My bad.
I'm just pulling them up.
Yeah.
So this is some really interesting stuff. Reproductive steroids and ADHD symptoms across the menstrual cycle. Right? So relationship between sex hormones, reproductive stages, and ADHD, a systematic review. And then attention deficit hyperactivity disorder in the menstrual cycle, theory and evidence. These are all great papers if you guys want more, if you want to read more on the topic, but I'm going through these and I'm going to prepare a lecture.
By the way, we've seen some feedback that you guys would like sources cited, and we're figuring out a better workflow. Here's why it's hard, because usually Alec will have an idea. He'll post it on our company Slack. Our research manager will pull what he thinks is relevant, and then Alec will formulate, kind of looking at everything, he'll formulate kind of what he wants to say. A lot of times he's not pulling from any one paper. A lot of times it's from across the board. Sometimes it's one paper. But I think where things break off is he doesn't close the loop and say, okay, I've written this out and here's the edited down list of sources. So we're working on how to get better at that, but that's the disconnect.
Okay, so a couple other questions. Great questions. Someone asked about borderline personality disorder. This is another one that I'm super proud of. I think it's one of the best lectures I've done. It's a 30-minute lecture on BPD, and then there's a 35-minute lecture on how to date someone with BPD. I think they're both top-notch, and YouTube, I think, agrees. Those are some of our better performing videos. And that's my face over there. That's good. And then someone asked about astrology. So, man, okay, so like I think that I'm already, so one of the things about feedback, so I get that there's an appetite for more in-depth stuff. So I think we're gonna do like more deep dives in 2024. So more like we're gonna do more deep dives, and I'll do one on astrology if y'all want. I have many thoughts about astrology. I think at the top of the list is I think the way that we're studying astrology is wrong. So everyone says there's no scientific evidence of astrology. That's because I don't think the trials have been designed right.
Uh-oh.
So here's what I would like to do. So I think one of the trials that we need to do for astrology, I've tried to do this one a couple of times, but just haven't been able to get together the people. What we need to do is have a competent astrologer draw up a set of birth charts. And then what we need to do is have those birth charts anonymized. And then we need to see if people can pick out their own birth chart. So if we have 10 birth charts and 10 people, what is the likelihood that you will be able to pick out your birth chart? Now, there is a random chance of one person for 10 things. That's 10%, right? The actual statistics are a little bit more complicated than that. But I suspect that if you get a competent astrologer, that you will get a better than 10% hit rate, because I think there's something legitimate to astrology. The problem is that astrology has become so unscientific that all the scientists left. And so a lot of astrology has become like BS that is not rigorously done or even trained, right? So you kind of think about, we have like schools where we have very excellent teachers who are like teaching this stuff. Whereas astrology is like, I'm learning random crap from the astrological equivalent of WebMD. So I think as a field, the academic rigor in the field of astrology is at like a 1 out of 10. So I think that's another reason why astrology is not
anybody
well regarded.
Can be an astrologist, right?
Yeah. So I think if we actually start studying it, and I know that, so I was talking to my grandmother the other day who was telling me about my dad's birth chart. And like, it's crazy, but like she was saying, like, you know, all the stuff was predicted and like really weird stuff. I've had 2 astrologers. So I've seen probably about 10 astrologers over the course of my life. 2 or 3 of them I think are the real deal, like scary level of predictive accuracy. So I think a lot of astrology uses some of these cognitive biases, like the availability bias and some amount of vagueness. And there's like, you will have a challenge at some point in your future. And that just general statements that apply to anyone. But, you know, one astrologer told me that my good career, like the right career for me, was funeral home management. And like, so that prediction was wrong. And then, and I still remember the conversation. I was like, what? And so some astrologers out there will be very specific. So he was like, yeah, like you should do funeral home management. I was like, what the fuck? And so then I was like, well, help me understand how you get that. And he's like, well, based on your birth chart, you would do really well with professions involving iron. And then I was like, does surgery count? And he's like, no. He's like, medicine isn't for you. And I was like, okay. But I mean, I give the guy credit for not saying like, oh, do something that helps people. You know, it's like such a specific thing. And so the interesting thing is that, I mean, that's one where arguably he's right. Like, I don't know, like maybe we'll shut down this whole HG thing and let's do funeral homes by HG.
With iron caskets.
And who knows, right? Maybe I'm not living up to my full potential. Glad you didn't listen to him. That's just because you're alive. But I mean, it's fun stuff. Like, I think astrology is very intellectually engaging. I just wouldn't go planning your life around it. By the way, we're a really good match in terms of astrological birth chart. We're like optimal.
We got too high of a score, right?
Nope, we didn't get too high of a score. So you can get too high of a score, which means like if you get like 30, I think it's out of 36. If you get 32 plus, that means that you're too similar and that you'll have a bad marriage. But I think we're in the high 20s, which
30s,
is like ideal.
Low 30s, I think.
No, I think we're like 29. Okay, well, we'll take a look.
Okay.
Dr. K being like, this isn't even my final form. Yeah, wait till we start. Oh, we're going to open a funeral home. We're going to buy a ranch. I'd do it, chat. I really would. If you guys give me the license and I could find some money, I'd do it. Let's see what happens.
Here's an interesting question. Does dosha influence dating?
Yeah, of course. Right, so dosha involves temperament and personality, and so that's something that becomes a problem. Or I mean, you just have to understand it. So we're very doshically aware. So she like when I move my hand, you know how she mocks me for moving too much? That's because I'm a vata and she's a kapha. So we kind of understand this.
Yeah.
And then she, I have the angular nose and she has like the round nose.
Yeah. I get mad easily. He doesn't.
I do sometimes though.
But less easily than I used to, right?
And I get mad more easily. That's because of caffeine intake and lack of sleep. HG funerals pog? I don't think so. I think we can call a lot of things that we do pog. Funerals doesn't seem right. On a scale of 1 to 10, how often do you adhere to your own advice? I'd say like...
Ooh, good question.
I'd say somewhere around a 7 to an 8. But if you really pay attention, I don't give much advice.
Is that the loophole?
Yeah. I don't think advice is very helpful. So in terms of living according to what I teach, I'd say it's like a 7 or an 8. And like if I wasn't, then, I mean, it helps a lot. Like, it helps a lot to understand the nature of happiness and like literally like understand how to be happy. And it's like a process that you can do. And so it helps me be happy on a day-to-day basis. A good example of that is even with like all this feedback, right? So some people were like, oh, like people should be grateful. And like, take a step back from that. Take a step back from my own ego. And it's like if people are saying something, what's their intention? I don't think their intention is to make me feel bad if they're critical. Their intention is that they see the work that we're doing. They think that something that we're doing is not aligned with that work and they're sharing their opinion. I think they're coming from a place of positivity. And so that's just a really simple example of just how you reframe. Like what happens up here is very important. Teach us more. That's the plan. Until I'm dead or can't do it anymore. Seeing that studies show that ADHD individuals have higher risks of depression and drug abuse, wouldn't medication be a better solution than that seeing the world does not cater to those with ADHD? It's a great question, and I'd refer you to 3 YouTube videos that we've done, or 4 things. It's 3 things that are free and 1 thing that's paid. So we had a conversation with Destiny about ADHD medication where we explain a lot of this stuff. That one's really good. We have a YouTube video about how ADHD leads to depression. That one's really good. There was another YouTube video about ADHD that covers this. Maybe we've got some stuff about ADHD medication somewhere else in there. And then the last thing is we have a guide to ADHD where we talk about this in depth. And I'm really happy that just from an internal compass standpoint, that if someone has a question, I can say, we've got somewhere around a minimum of 3 hours of stuff that you can watch for free. And if you want 10 hours, then you can pay $25. But I think it's like you can get a lot of value out of that 3 hours.
Oh, eating disorders again. I know you have some stuff around male body dysmorphia.
Yeah, so eating disorders. Yeah, we could do something about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Katie Scape is saying the guide to ADHD and doing stuff is amazing. Good. That's why we made it. Any major fears about the outcome of HG? Yeah. Take your pick. Everything from we crash and burn to we lose ourselves to I don't know, like some government
like 20 years from now, you're still making YouTube videos and you're like, just let me out of here.
I mean, there's all kinds of fears, right? So
Yeah.
so I don't know if y'all paid or following what's happening with like Twitch in Korea. And this is another reason why we do things the way that we do them. People are like, why don't you just do more stuff on YouTube or stream on Twitch or whatever? And part of the reason that we have a diversity of stuff is because if you're a Twitch streamer in Korea right now, you're screwed. Right. So like the problem with a lot of these like general ideas of why don't you just do this? Like, why don't you just make stuff on YouTube or whatever is like, then like if something happens with YouTube, then we're screwed.
There's basically because we've chosen, right? We don't want to just be a self-help channel. We want to make resources. So now we're in kind of two industries at the same time. We're watching mental health and the way mental health is regulated, how peer coaching is becoming more part of the conversation. We're watching, the way insurance reimburses and doesn't, and how like basically what's going on in healthcare and mental health. We're also watching what's going on in content and the creator economy and just kind of the platform wars, technology in general. And so to be at the intersection of that is a lot of volatility, a lot of changes, a lot of like one decision changes everything for like the ripple effect is so big. So that's where I think a lot of the careful planning, the risk hedging, the kind of that's important. But it's also really important for us to have a North Star, which is, again, this community, because we've made conscious decisions. We don't want to take on investors because then we're beholden to profit lines. We don't want to become a nonprofit because then we're beholden to constantly fundraising. We don't want to, I guess, back away from the intensity and like the scrutiny and building a healthcare company is very expensive. That's where people raise like $10 million seed rounds, It takes a lot to be able to keep up with all of the regulatory environment. So we wanted to stay subclinical and not, I guess, take on challenges that were kind of too big for our scope. But we're wanting to expand as much as we can to help as much as we can. So that's where the Institute comes into play. That's where these different coaching iterations come into play, memberships, more modules, workshops, etc. That's kind of the root of it all, is just to be able to have, I think, a really strong North Star when there's so much change happening on both sides of these two industries. We are not a B Corp. The reason you would file as a B Corp, it would be to essentially be able to take on investors and not have the fiduciary responsibility of profit and returns. But we're not really looking for investors. I don't know, something about B Corp just doesn't feel right. Like it feels overly complex for what we're trying to do.
Okay, so can I?
Yeah.
I love a lot of these questions. This is super cool. So I think thank you all very much. So one thing that I actually want to express gratitude for is our community is awesome. So one thing that I think is awesome is that we have so many people who ask questions and we have so many people who answer them. So like, that's awesome that y'all know so much, everything from what's going on in Korea to even people like posting about, hey, this happened with my psychiatrist, what should I do? And like, I read the comments and I think to myself, oh, like I should answer this question. And I read the comments and someone has given an answer that honestly is better than the answer that I could give. So that's epic. Strong work, everybody. Next thing, that there's 3 or 4 questions that I wanted to get to. So people are talking about crash and burn is relative at this stage. There surely is a large impact to the digital community at large already. Absolutely. So let's understand something. Crash and burn means that we disappear in some way. And that could happen tomorrow. Who knows, right? So like maybe the federal government decides that medical doctors can no longer create content on the internet. Like who knows what kind of legislation could happen, right? People have talked about banning TikTok in the US. And so whatever. Like we don't know what's going to happen with the intersection of content creation and being a medical professional, because we're one of the few professions that has like an ongoing licensure process where there's like additional stuff that's attached. So if that happens tomorrow, I don't know what could happen. We could crash and burn. But you're right that we made a big impact. So one thing that I also want to say is like, whatever happens tomorrow and whatever people are happy with or unhappy with today, the one thing that I feel really good about is I started this to help for one really simple reason. I thought that if I spent my whole career as a psychiatrist working in my office, I would be able to reach, let's say, 30 people a year for 30 years. So I'd be able to help about 1,000 patients. And so my goal when I started at HG was to be able to help at least 1,001 people. There needs to be a net benefit beyond what I can do as a clinician. And I honestly feel that confident to say that we've probably helped at least 1 million people. So we get about 5 million views or unique viewers on YouTube.
Uniques, yep.
So we get about 5 million, maybe closer to 6 now, unique people.
Closer, between 4 and 5.
Between 4 and 5, okay. So 4 million, 5 million, unique viewers on YouTube, right? That doesn't count our other platforms. There's a lot of overlap. And so I think it's safe to say that if there's 4 million unique people every month, that somewhere in there we've crossed the 1 million mark in terms of like people that actually gain some benefit. So already in my book, it's been an overwhelming success. Irrespective of the money stuff, irrespective of where we're going to go, up until this point, we've helped a ton of people, which is what we set out to do. So it's already a success. Everything beyond this is, in a sense, gravy. But in the other sense, there's an acknowledgement that even though we've helped a bunch of people, is it enough? And the problem is, no, it's not enough, right? We haven't turned the tide on the direction that our mental health is going. There's a deterioration across the world. And so I'm happy to hang up my hat once someone else fixes the problem. Right now, the problem is that I don't see anyone doing what we're trying to do better than we are. So that means we have to do it.
Any last questions, guys?
Someone saying fundraising in Venmo. So look, I think this is one thing that, sometimes we'll do some kind of fundraising, but our commitment is that if y'all want to support us, there are a couple things you can do. The first thing that you can do is you can get better. Like that's what we're here for. Like, so the most basic thing that we're asking you to do is get better. Understand yourself better, become healthier, become happier. That's like literally what the job is. So if you do that, and this is why most of our content is free, it's because like that's our goal. Now, if you want to support us, you can support us by giving us money in any number of ways, right? Pre-order the book. That's probably the thing that maybe will support us the most right now. Or do something like just sign up for memberships or buy the guide or give coaching a shot. the one thing that I feel really good about internally, and maybe I'm wrong, and if I am, y'all let me know, is that when we ask y'all for money, we want to give you something worthwhile in return.
Right.
So that's why, I mean, if you guys have been paying attention to comments, people have, like, we're not asking, hey, did y'all like the guides? People are saying, hey, the guide was great. Hey, the guide was great. The meditation guide is also great. That's why we build this stuff. So if you want to help us, just get something that we're offering you and pay for it. Don't give us something for free. Get something in return. We don't, if y'all just do that, that'll be enough, right? Because we walked through all the stuff, all the finances and things like that, and the considerations and things like that. And the reason that we come up with these products at the price points that we come up with is, first of all, $50 a week is too expensive for a lot of people out there. Totally get you. $25 is a one-time price, is something that a lot of people can afford, but some people can't. So $10 a month is something that it's even a lower price point, right? So it's like more accessible. And you get 4 lectures a week, Q&A every week, and then even an additional Q&A stream where we're going to answer your questions. And there was a question about what about leaving F2P people behind. So here's the reason we're not leaving F2 people behind, because we're not cutting into any F2P stuff. We're going to continue offering all the free stuff and continuing to grow the free stuff. The money, the money that we ask for funds the free stuff. And so for each of you who's taken a shot at coaching, that money went to build the institute, which is now being used to educate therapists, so that 3 years from now, when some kid who's 19 walks into their therapist's office, they're going to know more about technology addiction. They're going to know about social media induced body dysmorphia, and they will be able to help that person more.
I saw a question about how do you know when it's time to change your therapist? I'll give you my experience. So I was seeing a therapist for a little while after I had our first baby, and there was just so many transitions going on. Alec was working a ton. And I felt like I had spent 4 or 5 weeks just explaining my life, and we weren't getting anywhere, and I wasn't sure if we were ever going to get anywhere. Because also at that time, when you have like a new baby, that time commitment of like 1 hour a week it's quite a commitment. So the questions I asked that helped me understand, okay, this isn't really going to work, was just saying like, hey, do you have a sense of what's going on or what a way forward looks like? And her answer wasn't super satisfactory. Another thing that helped me was talking to other therapists, of saying like, hey, here's my situation, and them being able to say, okay, this is pretty straightforward. Here's what I do with other patients like you. And they could kind of give me a sense of what our time together would look like. And I don't think it's necessarily, just because you set a plan, knowing 20 minutes about a person doesn't necessarily mean you're going to stick to that. But I wasn't interested in a never-ending conversation about my life. I was looking to like deal with something, move on, and my therapist wasn't. So that's kind of how I knew that it was time to move on. And I basically said, hey, I think I can give this like 2 or 3 more weeks before I have to make a decision on whether or not this is doing anything for me. So I was pretty straightforward with my therapist, which was hard for me at the time. But it helped quite a lot. That's just my story. Alok probably has a more academic answer, but as someone who has been there, that's what helped me.
I was responding to people in chat.
Okay, cool.
Will you do more content about autism? Absolutely. I love, dude, autism is fascinating. I think just neurodivergency in general is fascinating. So like I said a couple times, I'm working on a video or lecture on autism and software development. And so there's some stereotypes. What's the truth of it? Is it actually advantageous in some ways? It's really fascinating.
Ooh, this is a good question. Madsman? I would love to see y'all obtain more badges of legitimacy, so to speak. APA and talking to the Surgeon General are amazing steps. Do y'all consider collaborative projects with governments? what's really interesting is the U.S. government is, that's our home government, and we're not seeing a lot there. We are seeing interest from schools, from cities. I think like somebody from the city of Corpus Christi, Texas reached out, which was pretty cool. We've seen interest from the government of Australia. By the way, I don't know if you know this, but Australia has like a voucher program where you can use like tax-free money or something for mental health services, which is like super cool. And they include things like mental health education, books, courses, things like that. So if you're Australian, definitely look into that. A lot of interest from the Middle East, which seems to be really progressive when it comes to mental health, at least in what we do, I guess. I don't want to make a blanket statement, but we've seen a lot of interest from some Middle Eastern governments. But yeah, we really want to work there. I think there are a couple of research projects in the works, and getting some accreditations for the Institute has been, I think, more legitimacy badges. So we're accredited by NADAC, which is, I'm going to get this wrong, but some of those A's stand for addiction, the
National Association for Addiction Counselors or something like that.
Yeah. So from NADAC, from the American Psychological Association, and I think a provisional from the American Social Workers Board. So I hear you loud and clear. I think we do need more legitimacy. We do want to work at that kind of more macro level. And we're taking a lot of steps to get there.
Yeah. I mean, so like, I think a big part of this is that HG is way more than what y'all see. Like there's a whole operation in which we have calls with health systems that have 130 hospitals and medical centers, like in various parts of certain countries. And we speak with governments. We've done work. The most bizarre thing is collaborating with the United Nations Counterterrorism Unit. And so we'll do this kind of stuff like all the time, and that stuff takes time, right? So the other thing to also remember is like the UN doesn't pay me when we do that. Like we don't get any money for that. We do it to make the world a better place. And so there's a lot of governments that we're talking to and places that we're going in different countries where we also don't publicize a lot of that, because I think that, see, our mission is to try to help people with their mental health. And we tend to be open to supporting people who want to do something with that. And I think part of the challenge that we face is that some of the people that we're approached by have a political ideology that, at least in the West, can be considered quite extreme. And so we're also like trying to navigate what to do about that, right? So let's say that pick your favorite politician who you think is an evil person. Imagine a scenario in which that person approached HG and said, hey, will you help us with mental health in my country? And what do you think we should do in that situation? Like, I don't know what the right answer is. So, and there's a lot of stuff that we're dealing with on that side, right? Because that's part of the mission, but that is so far away from y'all, which is fine. Like, I don't know what's going to happen. In terms of crash and burn, we could run afoul of some foreign government and I'm in that country and maybe I disappear and I never come back. Like, that's honestly something I've considered. It's not it's a possibility. Yeah, so someone's asking about India. Absolutely. So I don't know if y'all know this, but like India has quite a profound mental health crisis as well. And one of the things I was super surprised by is who in India is willing to admit it, because people that I was very surprised about, was expecting people based on my assumptions about political beliefs that they would be like, oh, this is not a problem. But especially suicide in people, millennials and younger, is like real problem in India. Something has happened in the system of education. I'm not trying to criticize India. Every country has a evolution of whatever, and it's happening all over the world. And I don't think India is immune. And so a lot of people are just struggling over there. Like this whole system of like education where, you know, you go to school and then you spend like 6 hours a day at like a coaching school or something like that, doing your tutoring and whatnot. Like it's brutal. And people don't, and they work really, really hard for like 16 hours a day, starting at the age of like 11. And then at the age of 18, they get some test, or 16 or something like that. The test score is not as high as everyone else who's grinding just as hard as you are, or even harder. And then like your family is disappointed, you know, there's no chance of recovery because, I mean, the US is nice in that way where I could fail out of college and like there's a path for me to still wind up at Harvard. I think that's way harder in India. Yeah. So once you kind of like, once you have one setback in India, it's very hard to recover, is my understanding. And if people are from India and that's incorrect, please educate me. But absolutely. So the other thing to understand is that HG is international. Like we've had clients in 121 countries at this point. That's what we set out to do. So like
in 17 territories.
17, yeah, right?
It's really very cool. It's such a privilege. It is a lot of work, and it takes a lot of infrastructure to support all of the different people and places that we're in.
Yeah. Okay, y'all. Well, thank y'all very much for coming today.
Thank you.
I like that we've gotten to the point where people have not quite asking so many questions, which is cool.
Are we all happy? Is anybody still mad? We'll probably find out on Reddit.
Yeah, no, I think it's I think it, how can I say this?
I think at the end of the day, please just know that we're trying to do the best we can, and we're trying to do it for all the right reasons. And the way we get there, there's not a single right answer, right? Because if you look at any of the big mental health companies right now, they're laying people off, or they're in trouble because of privacy laws. They're like, everybody is trying to figure this out. If we had figured it out, we wouldn't be in a mental health crisis. So we're all just trying to apply what we know how to do. And the thing that we know how to do better than anyone else is how to connect with this community online and build subclinical resources. So we're not going to be the people to come to for therapy, but we're going to be the people that are going to produce the best educational experiences, the best community experiences, the best coaching experiences, kind of anywhere on the internet. And we're really proud of that.
One last passion project that I want to tell you all about.
Oh my God. Between the ranch and your astrology research and like all of your other wild ideas.
Last one.
Please.
So someone was asking, can Kruti narrate the book? I would love to write a book one day about the story of HG and what I've learned about it, and have her write the same book, but from her perspective. And it's going to be
it'll be like an annotated journal. I'll just like cross this out.
Because it's so interesting. Like I have all these ideas and perspectives, and it's like her life is completely different, and what she deals with on a day-to-day basis is completely different. It's like 2-hour phone calls with the IRS over here. And then.
What a great way to start the day.
Yeah. Everything's okay, thankfully, because she's such a Chad. Such a Stacy. But yeah, so thank you all very much. Honestly, like, thank you very much for being here. Thank you very much for coming. Thank you very much for giving us the time of day. And even, you know, Kruti was asking her, is anybody still mad? And like, you're allowed to be, right? That's okay. And if you are, like, let us know. The only thing that we ask is that you be constructive in your criticism as much as you can, because I have a human brain just like everyone else.
We're actually, like, you're talking to us.
Yeah, we're reading it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so even this stream was like, I've already streamed 3 days today, in addition to whatever content work that I do and other things. I was like on a podcast and things like that. But we decided to do this because I think it was overdue. And I think that at some point what started happening is we used to be a lot more open with our discussions about what we were thinking about. And then we in a sense, we stopped doing that because like the reason that Kruti is like face palming when I talk about what I want to do is it ends up creating expectations. Yeah. And then it ends up creating disappointment. And so what I realized is that when I say something, people think it's going to happen, even if I say this may not happen. And this is something that every content creator, we've had 500 creators in our content creator coaching program, and all of them do this. Because the problem on the internet is like, I've been speaking, we've been here for 2 hours and 42 minutes. And the problem is that a small slice of this can define the whole conversation. So what creators end up doing over time is speaking less and less. Because what someone will hear, even over the course of this 2 hour and 42 minute conversation, people are going in and out. The nuance is very easy to miss in a society that has 30-second clips that get uploaded.
So Tori E put it super succinctly. I missed it. What are we mad about? And it's just like,
yeah, case in point, right? Beautiful. It really hits the nail on the head.
Right. Thanks, guys. Really appreciate it. Good to see you. I'll try to drop in more often because this is fun for me.
This
is not fun for you. It's okay. You're gonna have to take one.
I know.
Yeah.
Take one for the team.
That's right.
Okay. Thank you all very much. Have a good weekend.
Bye.
Do you still stream on Twitch? Absolutely. I think we're going to start. So we were talking a little bit about YouTube memberships today. So that's why we're streaming on YouTube. I think technically we could stream on Twitch and talk about YouTube memberships, but I think that's a bad form.
I think you can't.
Okay. Well, that's good to know.
This is why you have a team.
Yeah. But we're planning on, I think, actually dual streaming more, especially for some of these things.